Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're here for a special City Council meeting. It's Monday, February 26th, 2018. We'll start with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Scott? Drew? Nordstrom? Modrick? Solomon? Lewis? Armstrong? Laurenti? Drury? Roberts. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. We'll go next to a invocation by Michael Howard, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mayor. Father, I ask that you be with us tonight in this, what could be a contentious meeting. I ask that you help cooler heads to prevail. And I ask that you guide our words, that we might be along the lines that you would guide us to be. Father, we give you praise and thanks for the city of Rapid City and all that it is and all that it represents and all that it can be. And we worship you in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Now, for the adoption of the agenda, we can approve the agenda as written, or we can make changes to it at this point. Do we have any motions? Motion to approve as presented, second by Armstrong. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we're down to public comment. I've already got a form for you, Richard. For tonight's public comment, I would like to divide the comments into proponents and opponents. And I would ask for the proponents that we not all take your 3 minutes. We have so far 14 of you, and if someone covers what you're about to say, give some time to the next person. I don't mind devoting up to an hour for public comment, but I think we should be able to do that. So I will start with the proponents tonight. We'll go to Dennis Popp. And here's the light up here for everyone, just in case we forget to say it. Here's the light. It'll give you 3 minutes. It'll start blinking when you should wrap up.
Thank you for the opportunity to be a proponent for this presentation tonight. I recall over 30 years ago, we were the Star of the West. And the Star of the West had this bright diamond in it, which was the Civic Center. And this bright diamond attracted many people, many events, and many performers. Our public leaders, 30 years ago or more, maybe it was 40, did not let the naysayers diminish their vision and the facts of economic development and hospitality needs. Growth is a major issue that needs to be addressed here. I served on the Planning Commission and for a few years and was always amazed at the number of apartment buildings that were being planned and built. There are even more today than there were then. Who is moving here? Where are they coming from? Black Hills Corp is one of our community leaders, has a belief in our area, and managers and vice presidents are moving here from out of state. Regional Hospital knows that you change and get bigger or patients leave the state. And the hospital is bringing in doctors and nurses to live here. The developers of Rushmore Crossing did not build this crossing for a 10-year business plan. The demographics show that growth is slowly occurring and growth builds on growth. Today's corporate CEOs and our local entrepreneurs do not plan that growth will not occur or that their future is for only 10 years, which was proposed to look at the Civic Center needs again. The stock show, for example, was full this year. I had reported that there was a person from Montana that finally got to be a vendor. He waited 15 years to get in here to show his wares. The L&I have had to separately go throughout the city and are waiting for us to make a decision for growth. Sioux Falls would like them to move there. The media needs to report on the potential revenue over the next 20 years, not just today's cost. The interest rates, by the way, are still fairly low. They need to have the naysayers report facts on their position. And there needs to be a distinction in the press on the limitations of the tax that supports this expansion. This expanded arena will meet the needs of our diverse population. It is not just for me or others in this audience. We have new neighbors that are moving here and living here. We will all need to be chastised for the low voter turnout, 7% to 27%, does not represent the majority of our citizens. Time?
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jim White.
It's 30 seconds, just getting up here. Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of Sound Pro tonight, just saying that I do support the expansion of the Civic Center and building a new arena. Just a real quick little note, this is one of those things that I have a little bit of historical, significance in my own mind, maybe nobody else's, but way back in the very beginning of the Civic Center in 1978, I was one of a group of 4 businesses that held the first off-site sale, meaning off-site. We as business people left our businesses and we came to the Civic Center and we had a sale. Now this was before the Rushmore Hall existed. We had the first off-site sale in the LaCroix Hall in just one section of the 4 sections of LaCroix Hall in 1978 with a grand plan of flying Dick Scholvock high above the Civic Center in a Raven Industries balloon. He was going to broadcast our sale from high above the Civic Center in 1978. It was a great weekend for us. Unfortunately, after we had that sale, it seems like it seemed to be such a good idea that Bob Fisher for the next 5 years booked the Civic Center almost all the time for off-site sales. But the idea is that the Civic Center is way more than just a venue for the city. It's for all of us, and there's activities and things that we can do, and there's so many things that could be done at the Civic Center. What we really need to do is proponents and opponents alike to get together and find ways to help make our city better and to use our civic arena in a way that benefits all of us. So I would just admonish everybody to, one way or the other, whatever we do, when it's all said and done, we need to get together and find better ways to actually use the facility and do things with it, because there are lots of things that can be done. Having had the first off-site sale been one of the 4 businesses, and the other 3 businesses today do not exist. It was Sound Pro, Mountain Goat Sports, Wave Manufacturing, and Jill LaCroix Clothing, and the other 3 are all gone. But I've been able to maintain my stay here, and I think it's probably because of the Civic Center. Thanks.
Thank you. Doug Thiel. Doug Thiel.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, I'm Doug Thiel, Rapid City banker and a 23-year citizen of Rapid City. I'm a proponent to build the expansion to the Civic Center. The mayor and the task force, I feel, have done their due diligence in explaining and presenting to the citizens of the town, and the task force and the finance part of the task force, in my opinion, with my background in finance, have done their due diligence. We have the funding sources to do this. You look back to when they built the first we built the first Civic Center. I wasn't living here, but there are a lot of naysayers in town today. There were naysayers then, and if they'd listened to them, we wouldn't have had the expansion in the Rapid City that we have today. So I urge City Council to vote for the expansion of the Civic Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Gavin Fawbush.
Mayor, City Council, appreciate you taking the time to hear everybody out. So the vision that the City of Rapid City had 40 years ago was probably one of the smartest decisions ever made. It was the investment in the city. I think it is the smartest decision again is to invest in the city. It's not an expense to build a new facility. It is an investment into the city and the future of Rapid City and all the growth that would come with it. When it comes to millennials, we travel. I've been to Sioux Falls 5 to 7 times just for concerts in the last year and a half, and we go for an experience. And when we say experience, we go for the experience within the facility itself, which right now the Civic Center and the hockey arena cannot provide that type of an experience. So I urge you to approve this and vote for this and move forward for the future of Rapid City for the next 40 years. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Tyson Steiger.
All right, well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Tyson Steiger with Visit Rapid City. I'm the Director of Convention Sales, and as an individual whose job is to bring conventions to Rapid, I work with meeting planners, convention planners on a daily basis, and the feedback I get from them is something I just wanted to share with you today to kind of give you the site that's outside of Rapid City. Of course, here in Rapid, we can talk about our facility all day long because we know it, we've lived it. But the individuals who see it from afar are saying it looks tired. It's not a fact of we could bring big conventions here, but the thing is conventions are such on the rise that Las Vegas is opening up more convention space. Denver is opening more convention space. Of course, Sioux Falls with their new convention space. It's going on everywhere, and that's because conventions are becoming such a big thing. Where we've become so socially connected through all the different devices we have, we've kind of lost a social grasp of each other. And where to gain that is through going to a convention with like-minded individuals and being able to share the trade that's going on today. So while our convention center, of course, can host big groups, we've done such a good job in Rapid City of doing community-wide events that it's hard to get a group to have availability there. And if there is the availability, it's a matter of the convention actually looking at that facility and comparing it to the newer versions out there and saying, yes, I want to bring this big group to this community. Now, in fact, today, ironically, I actually got a call from Huron, South Dakota, with an individual who wants to bring the United Postmasters and Managers of America to Rapid City in 2022, which hopefully by that point we have this beautiful new arena available. And it's a group of 1,200, which you look at economic impacts, that's close to $1 million, if not more, of economic impact to our community. So the ripple effects of these events are outstanding. It opens up a lot of different jobs, and it obviously showcases our beautiful community to people from afar so they can learn our cultures and share it with their people of their areas. So conventions have such a great impact, and they're definitely a rising thing that I think moving forward with this is just such a benefit to everybody. So thank you for your time, and vote yes.
Thank you. Todd Tucker.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and esteemed City Council. My name is Todd Tucker. I'm the Director of Sports and Events for Visit Rapid City. And I too, like Tyson, am just here to speak on behalf of the work that we do at Visit Rapid City, bringing new tourists and bringing new things to the area. It was mentioned briefly, the Black Hills Stock Show and the Lakota Nations Invitational, and those are two organizations that I work closely with. A new arena is going to add so much more to both of those events. We'll be able to double what L&I does the second week in December every year, which is a perfect time of the year we want people to come in. We're also looking for more arena space, more floor space to have larger soccer tournaments, to host volleyball tournaments under one roof, to host basketball tournaments under one roof. And currently, we don't have the ability to do that in our Civic Center. So with the addition of a new arena, we'll be able to add off-season events at a time of the year. We don't necessarily need more people coming to Rapid City in May through August, when we're already very busy with the tourism season. So what I'm looking very closely at is what are things that we can do in our off-season. And so to bring in a big wrestling tournament every year, to bring in a big volleyball tournament every year are right on my radar. And to have a new arena, to have that space, is what's going to be necessary for us to move forward. So I urge you to vote yes and for us to move forward with the new arena. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Johnson.
Mayor and council members, thank you so much for allowing me to speak tonight. And 37 years ago, I came to Rapid City as a young 20-year-old kid from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I remember I moved into a house with 4 of my brothers, and we didn't have much money, but one thing was for sure, we would all scrounge together anytime there was a big show coming to the Rapid City Civic Center. I remember thinking there wasn't a lot to do in Rapid City at that time, but one thing was for sure is that Rapid City had this state-of-the-art civic center, and it was just almost unfathomable to think of bands like ZZ Top and Yes, these great groups that we all love coming to Rapid City and even South Dakota for the first time. A lot of years have passed since then, and I grew a business in Rapid City, Presidential Pawn and the Clock Shop, and now I serve as chair of Visit Rapid City, and I'm very proud of that. And I'm such a cheerleader for this great city. I've come to just love Rapid City. But looking back, I'd like to put things in perspective, even for those of you who oppose this Civic Center. 5 years after the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center was built, there was another state-of-the-art building built called the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis. And I'd just like those of you who are opposed to think about, could Minneapolis have possibly gotten the Super Bowl this last year with the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome as a facility? I don't think so. And we have to come to grips with the fact that things change, times change, facilities age, and we no longer can support the kinds of comments about our state-of-the-art facility. We can't back it up the way we used to be able to. I have warm memories, we all do. The Don Barnett Arena has served us beautifully, but we can all agree that it is no longer state-of-the-art. So I ask all of us, the whole city, to support this, because we want that next 20-year-old who moves to Rapid City to look at that and think, wow, you got a state-of-the-art facility. And in terms of business development, anything, who's going to invest in Rapid City if we don't invest in ourselves? From time to time, we just have to do that. And I'm asking everyone to support the Civic Center expansion and get behind it. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Bancroft.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you very much. I'm a very strong proponent of needing the new arena, and I work with Visit Rapid City. I'm the Senior Vice President of Finance and Operations, and so I've done the due diligence of really understanding the mayor's presentations and the numbers, and the numbers do speak for themselves. We believe, as Visit Rapid City, that it is vital to the future of Rapid City and our ability to bring, as Todd and Tyson mentioned, meetings and conventions as well as sports activities, particularly youth activities. And I want to share with you a study that was done by the Tourism Economics for the Events Industry Council and Meetings Mean Business Coalition. It answers the question, what industry creates more jobs in the U.S. than auto manufacturing, chemical manufacturing, including pharmaceuticals, and oil and gas? Well, this study showed bringing people together for face-to-face meetings has massive impacts on everything from direct spending in cities where meetings are held to indirect spending through the supply chain and spending by people working in the industry. That these activities in the facilities where they are held serve as investment accounts that create wealth for Rapid City, which is one of the main reasons that Visit Rapid City exists, is to drive that economic engine. According to the study, that meetings and conventions alone generate a 160% return, with $1.60 put into circulation for every dollar that is spent, including injecting fresh tax dollars into the city where the meetings are held. So when Rapid City hosts a meeting, convention, or sports event, the average spend of an attendee on rooms, restaurants, attractions, shopping, gasoline, etc., is anywhere from $230 to $240 a night. That's a pretty good return on our investment. So if you recall only one thing of what I've shared with you, please remember that the facilities are absolutely key to bringing in bigger meetings and conventions and sports events. The greater the attendance, the bigger the economic impact on Rapid City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gladys Storm.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I am Gladys Storm. I am a native of the Rapid City area. Wes and I have lived in and pay taxes in Rapid City for 60 years. That's longer than most of you are old. We love Rapid City. It is a great place to live. However, we have noticed in the last few years it has become a city of negativism. It seems like every idea or issue brought up becomes, by some, negative. And sometimes those negative people use incorrect information, and that is not right. If we want to grow, we need to become progressive again and provide citizens with choices and opportunities here instead of driving several hundred miles. We were here when the Civic Center was built. We fought hard for it and have enjoyed many activities in it. We even had the privilege of watching one of our former mayors play basketball in that once versatile and beautiful building. We urge this city to become progressive and positive again, a place we can be proud of. Let's build it now and not push it 20 years down the road for our kids and grandkids to pay for. Let's do it. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Wes Storm.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Thanks for saving the best for last. Get that little pun? Anyway.
You're not last.
Okay. Around our household, I am. I was the athletic director of Stevens High in '77. Howard Now and I hosted the first AA basketball tournament in the arena. We had a sellout, 10,005, and the fire marshals and everybody got on our case, but beautiful place to go. Mine is rather short and simple, like I am. The last statement in the editorial today by the 5 mayors or 7 mayors, whoever wrote it, said, if we repair it, it'll extend its life for 15 to 20 years. Big deal. We're just kicking it down the road for our kids and our grandkids. If you just take 3% a year, we're going to double the cost.
Thank you. Bob Wyrick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you very much for the time. Just a couple things that probably haven't been said here tonight directly. I talked to one of my constituents out there and was listening to him the other day talking about trying to get into a convention down in Sioux Falls. As probably the stock show people have also noted, is that he couldn't get in. There's a waiting list to get in. They weren't able to tell him how long you'd have to wait as well too. And I learned also later on is that not only are they having to wait, but they're talking about tearing down the arena at Sioux Falls so they can do whatever. And then what happens to that convention that's already pushed for space? I think we have a similar situation with the Black Hills Stock Show. And there's certainly been a waiting list for that, people trying to get in. I think we have a chance to grow that activity, plus other activities that we may not even know about. We certainly didn't know about the Black Hills Stock Show as we know it today back in 1977 when the Civic Center was built. The last thing I want to say is that I have been a resident of western South Dakota for all my life. I guess with the exception of about 6 months. And in that time, when I thought about when I lived in rural Sturgis and Spearfish and Pierre, which I still consider kind of in its own little world, but and Rapid City resident for the last 7 years. I've always thought about the Civic Center, and I said, well, you know, boy, look at how expensive, look at how much that facility has cost over the years, but it really hasn't. I've never ever said, boy, I don't like that they're taxing the people to pay for this public space, and so there I'm going to boycott Rapid City and not spend my money in Rapid City. Just the opposite. I went to Rapid City, whether I lived in Spearfish, rural Sturgis, Pierre, or now that I'm here in Rapid City. I went to Rapid City. I bought the meals. I went shopping. I did all sorts of other things, including enjoying the activities at the Civic Center, either professionally or personally. And that's why I came to Rapid City. It's because people like things like the Civic Center. They like the progressive optics that the Civic Center and a new arena could present for the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Casey Martin.
Sorry. Thank you for the opportunity to address the council and interested community members. Full disclosure, I am the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center production manager, so I know a little bit about the subject matter tonight, especially the technical challenges of doing large shows in a building built for a different era. My responsibilities include helping touring shows and local presenters with creating high-quality experiences for the people of Western South Dakota. I work in an industry called show business. My mentor, the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center's first stage production manager, told me that early on in my career. She would say that and then add, never forget the business. For 40 years, the Civic Center has had a positive economic impact on Rapid City and the surrounding communities. I love this great city and all it offers and want it to continue to be great for our children. The decision before you is not whether we rehabilitate an old arena, spending money on a 40-year-old building, or reinvest in a new arena in our community's future. The question before you is whether or not we want continued economic success. I ask you vote for continued economic success by voting yes for this expansion. Thank you for your time. I yield the remainder of my time to others.
Thank you. Jeff Karsrud.
I think a lot of our answers were answered by the gentleman just before me, because he knows exactly what it takes to be able to get and keep those kind of acts at that level. But my name is Jeff Karsrud. I'm a local business owner, Wind Supply of Rapid City, and also a resident of Ward 5, and definitely for the plan to build a new arena. Past chairman of Economic Development, chairman of the Ellsworth Task Force, and also past original board member and chairman of the Public Relations for Summer Nights on 7th. So I mention those because I'm going to give you a couple different points of view. As far as my business is a plumbing wholesale company, and I've never sold, to my knowledge, never sold to the Civic Center directly, but I can tell you that we all benefit from the impact that the Civic Center's got, whether it's whatever business you're in. You're going to be impacted from that. As far as the Ellsworth Task Force, I talked to many airmen, whether it's leaders or folks working on the planes, and a lot of people ask me, what are you guys going to do? Aren't you guys going to keep up with Sioux Falls as far as the arena? And I can tell you what my answer is. My answer is actually Sioux Falls doesn't want us to compete or needs us to compete with them. They actually need us to build this arena so they can get more acts too, because these acts jump through areas that are easy to travel. It's just like distribution. Why can't we get Chick-fil-A? Because we don't have food distribution in the area. Chick-fil-A would do great here. We don't have food distribution. It's the same thing with entertainment, and not just entertainment, but the conventions. The conventions are the big thing that I think a lot of us forget about when we're talking about these things. We talk about Lady Gaga and that kind of stuff. The conventions are the ones that puts the butts in the seats and the bodies in the beds. Summer Nights on 7th. When we first, there was a small group of us that decided that we should do some type of, I see a smile, some type of convention or festival downtown Rapid City. So we started kicking it around, and we thought, you know what, we should do this. And they said, okay, what day of the year are you going to do it? We're going to pick a day. We said, no, we got bigger ideas than that. They said, okay, we're going to try to do this like once a month. Are you going to do it in the middle of the month, beginning of the month? No, actually, we're thinking about doing it once a week. And everybody said, no, hey, you're crazy. That would take a whole year to plan for one event, and you guys are going to try to pull this off once a week? And we went and looked at places like Missoula, Fort Collins, and looked towards those guys to figure out what a great event could look like. Now those kind of cities are coming back to us saying, what the heck did you guys do? How did you do it, and how can we make it better? So just wanted to let you know, if you haven't figured out, I'm definitely for a build of the Civic Center. I think it's a win-win, yes, Mayor, win-win for the community.
Thank you. And just for the record, no one from the city mentioned the name Lady Gaga. Next, Linda Raby.
Mayor and Council, thank you for letting us come up and tell you a little bit of why we believe it's a good idea. I'm going to speak with two hats. One, most of you know me as the Chamber Director, and of course the Chamber is always interested in what's going on at the Civic Center. We live there. We've seen over the years how the Barnett Arena, it has deteriorated. It's an old building, and it needs to be updated. So of course we're for it. But another one that I wanted to bring up is we meet as a group. It's the Black Hills Business Council, which is chamber directors from around the hills. And they all say, Linda, are you guys going to get it built? Because we use it. We need you to get it built. And they wish they could vote and come in, because Deadwood and Spearfish and Sturgis and Hot Springs and Custer, all of them use our Civic Center. But the other hat I'm going to do is my mom hat. And, you know, we moved here in '75 and raised our kids. We have loved the Civic Center. We have done everything from volleyball tournaments to soccer tournaments to all kinds of the arts, and have enjoyed every bit of it. One of the things that I think we really need to focus on is the workforce development issue, and to bring our kids home. We educate them and they move out because there's not enough to do here. My son just moved back. He's loving being here, loving attending the Civic Center. And I think on that behalf, we need to focus on our future and make sure that that Civic Center will keep our kids here, bring our kids back, and keep our grandkids here. So for that, I urge you to please vote yes to expand the Civic Center.
Thank you. Now, in fairness, that's all of the known proponents. In fairness, the former mayor's group didn't check whether they were for or against, but so I don't want to paint you in a bad light. Anyway, so we'll have the other speakers now, starting with Ed McLaughlin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name's Ed McLaughlin, and I've had the pleasure and responsibility of sitting in all those chairs that you are occupying this evening. So tonight I want to speak about the Vision 2012 plan, the program. The Vision Fund was started in 1992 by an initiated measure by the City Council and some 1,700 members of the Chamber of Commerce. The vote was authorized a half-cent sales tax to be used for economic development, facilities, infrastructure, and other capital improvements. Many citizens have forgotten that when the Civic Center was built and paid off, it had a sunset clause on it. That meant that the tax was repealed. In 1972, since 1972, over 60 projects have been built, constructed, financed by the Vision funds. They are listed on the Civic Center's website with the dollar amounts. I'm not going to go through and list all of them tonight, but here are a few of the major ones. The Journey Museum, the Jimmy Hilton Pool, Humane Society, Rapid City Public Library Edition, Roosevelt Park Pool, Club for Boys, South Dakota School of Mines and the track at that site, Highway 16 Fire Station, Public Safety Building, the Performing Arts at the Rapid City High School, the Civic Center complex for the ice arena, that amounted to about $25 million. The Skyline Drive preservation, downtown parking, Canyon Lake restoration, Pactola Water Plant, leisure pool at the Horace Mann, Main Street Square, airport terminal expansion, the Skyline Wilderness Park, the softball complex, and Roosevelt Park Field House. The point being that the city has funded all of these projects with Vision Fund money. If you take the Vision Fund money and bond for 30 years, you will either need to raise taxes or not add any new opportunities for emergencies that will occur. Many things have changed in the last 20 years, and they'll continue to change in the next 20. But one thing that hasn't changed, and that is that the city, in order to move forward, must have the support of the citizens. I urge you to put this important issue on the ballot and not force a referral vote by certain citizens.
Thank you. Richard Wallstrom.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, also you members of the Civic Center Task Force that came up with the decision tree that we're faced with tonight. Mayor, I'm not an opponent. I'm a proponent. I'm a proponent of remodeling. The question before the Council tonight is to remodel, to renovate, or to build new. That's your decision. The reason that we as a group have come together to support the remodeling is because, number one, it addresses and solves and completes the issues of the ADA requirements, which, as we will all recall, were the original reasons that this whole issue arose before the Council as well as the citizens. Secondly, we can pay for it. If not, I'm not certain how much is available today, but I do know that the spending has been restricted on the 2012 program over the last several years to allow the balance to grow. So we can pay for it, if not with available spending, then with minimal bonding, in contrast to bonding for at least $100 million to build new. The renovation would also address the life safety and some, not all, of the functionality issues, but it would significantly address the code issues that have been a bugaboo in the Civic Center for some time. And it would extend the life and the usefulness of that facility by some period. And that allows then the two things. It allows the city to consider what is the best way to address the future needs, and secondly, to build the political will to do this. I'm one who believes that politics is the art of the possible, and I believe that what's possible today in this climate is the remodel. And I think that it's important for us to do those fixes that we can without dragging the community through the trauma of another referendum on this issue. I wish that we'd had all of the studies that are now available to us, available in the course of our preparation of this response, but I appreciate this time and urge you to vote for the remodel this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve McCarthy? Nope. Keith Carlisle? Jim Shaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Jim Shaw, and I've lived in Rapid City for almost 50 years. I was here when the Civic Center was originally proposed, went through a number of controversies in the city and votes and so on until it was eventually built. And now, 40 years later, I think we'd be hard-pressed to find anyone in Rapid City who would say they were opposed to it originally, because they have come to realize the great benefit it has been for Rapid City. I want to make it clear, our group, 5 former mayors and 2 others, former finance officer of the city and school board president, we are not opponents of what's being proposed. We are not naysayers. I am for Rapid City. I love Rapid City. I want the best for our community. We want to see Rapid City grow. And at least in my opinion, I believe by taking the first step, the first positive step, that is to remodel the existing arena, would be your best course of action tonight. The citizens could refer it, but I think it's unlikely, as opposed to if you vote to build new, at least from what I'm hearing around town, it is likely that will be referred. You do have an option under state law where the city council, if you decide to build new, can then simply vote to send it to the voters, probably in June, when the next regularly scheduled election is, and have it reaffirmed by the voters. To me, that would be preferable to having a referendum election. We don't have all the information. All of the studies that are going to come forward here next on the agenda have not been available, at least to the public, up until now. So we don't know all the facts that need to be on the table before you vote to build new. We don't know the market analysis that I understand the Stone presentation is going to provide for us, and maybe that'll answer some questions, but it's coming right just before you make a final vote, and that doesn't seem to be the best way to proceed. We are dealing with facts, not opinions. I want to state clearly, we have no horse in this race. You decide what you want to decide and let the chips fall where they may. But our preference is, 1, remodel the existing arena. It's an achievable project. You have the money in hand. If that's not your choice, then send your decision, if you decide to build new, to voters with a simple vote here tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jerry Munson.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Jerry Munson. I'm a former Rapid City mayor, and I've lived in Rapid City my entire life. I have some prepared remarks, but let me say right now that I also am a proponent for item number 6. I must tell you that I have some major concerns as being cast as an opponent of anything in my town that I served as a mayor, city council president, and an alderman, and I'm concerned about that casting me in that light. I will tell you that everyone I serve with on that 7-member committee is for Rapid City in 100% way, and I hope you'll just look at what we have to say tonight as concerns, legitimate questions, things that we hope you'll consider. That's all. Regarding item 7, which is the proposal to spend 5 times more taxpayer money than you would if you chose item 6. First, I'm worried about the fact that your own recently signed municipal advisor agreement says you'll likely use certificates of participation as a financing tool for the dramatically more expensive option. This means leasing and then leasing back the ownership of the people's proposed new arena. Wikipedia describes a certificate of participation as being different from a bond issued by government agencies, since participation certificates are secured by lease revenues. Municipal entities use this instrument to circumvent restrictions that might exist on the amount of debt in other forms that they're able to take on. The state of South Dakota put these debt restriction rules in place to protect taxpayers from overwhelming debt caused by their own local government's overborrowing. They shouldn't be set aside so casually. Why is there even an alternative of bonding for the $25 million option when your own Vision Fund spreadsheet says you have $29 million in cash? Again, why would you sign an agreement to spend $15,000 to bond for the lesser amount when you have the cash in hand? Second, what are you planning to do to replace the lost parking spaces that'll be lost if you choose to finance a new arena? Are we going to have to walk from blocks away in a snowstorm or 10-degree below zero wind chills? The people of Rapid City are sturdy, but that doesn't seem like a good solution to me. If you have to build a parking ramp to replace that lost parking, it'll likely cost another $20 to $25 million to build something worth having. Even the failed proposal from 3 years ago showed an $18 million ramp included in the $180 million figure. Your own study you just received says this new arena could cost up to $135 million. So we'll have a $135 million arena with a 30-year debt, plus a parking ramp that the people will rightfully demand, probably costing upwards of another $20 to $25 million. Let's see, 135, carry the 6 zeros, add $25 million, and looks like we're at $160 million if you're going to treat parking access the way it should be treated. And that's being pretty optimistic on your part that there won't be any cost overruns, or as you folks refer to them, change orders. Sounds to me like we're right back in that big price tag neighborhood that 60% of the taxpayers voted against last time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Alan Hanks.
You have to wait and then pass it on.
Thank you, Mayor. It's all right. I'll go ahead and let that pass down because there's some reference information there. Thank you, Mayor. Let me start by asking a simple question. I've heard some rumblings that there's some concerns that this city council does not have the authority to place the bonding issue on the ballot. I guess I would look at the legal counsel and the council themselves. Is there that concern? If not, I want to address that because it's very clear within state statute as well within your authority. It's one of the few times the city council has the opportunity to actually put something on the ballot.
I remember all too often, I wish that I had the opportunity when I was mayor to actually put it on the ballot and actually ask what the voters wanted. You normally can't do that. But with bonding, it's very clear within state statute. Now, having said that, I want to address a couple other issues. To be cast as a naysayer, I think, is quite unfair. I think it's a revision of history. I'm looking at the mayor's own PowerPoint presentation with a number of major expansions at the Civic Center, starting with the food court, the ice arena, the fine arts, LaCroix Hall renovation. There's a couple others that aren't included, the energy plant, the additional parking. Guess who were the mayors during that time period? Us five. To try and cast us as anything but supportive of the Civic Center is basically creating revision history. Look also back at what the five mayors have done over the last 26 years, starting with all the projects on the 2012 program. You don't think that we have the best interest of the city at heart? So then the question has to be asked, why are there five former mayors asking you to remodel and not move forward with what I perceive as the city's preferred solution? There's an awful lot of unanswered questions, and I'm just going to touch on a few. The first of all, the issue hasn't been addressed. What happens to the Barnett Arena? If you build a new $135 million arena, I've heard suggestions that you're going to mothball the second floor. The problem is that doesn't address the ADA agreement you signed. There's cost involved in mothballing it. There's life safety issues. There are code issues. And there's the ADA issues that you have to fix no matter what you do with the Barnett Arena. That's not included in these costs. And to the mayor's credit, I remember 3 years ago it was estimated to be at $70 million, but they've come back and revised that, and I think you're at $25 to $30 million, and I appreciate righting that ship. But that's just one of the issues. Other issues that hasn't been addressed, and matter of fact, it's actually in the report I think that you're going to see. There's no long-term tenants whatsoever that have been identified. The actual study itself says there's a possibility of 4 to 6 new large concerts coming in. But yet the study itself doesn't address what I consider probably the most important issue is they don't mention Deadwood. Where do all the concerts go right now? They go to Deadwood Grand. And yet that's not even mentioned one time in this report. For the life of me, I can't understand that. There are way too many unanswered questions. So I see my time's up. Let me close by saying this. It is your decision. You are the elected officials of Rapid City right now. And I would encourage you to consider your options. You've heard the mayor's position. We prefer the remodel. My take is that's not the direction you're going to go. But if you do choose to move forward with a build new arena option, I would strongly, strongly recommend that you put it on the ballot. If you don't, you will hear repeatedly that you were not willing to allow the public to vote, that you didn't trust the public. And that puts you in a terrible situation. And I'm just trying to give advice because I've lived it. So please keep that in mind. If you do decide to go with the build option, I would strongly encourage you not to let it be referred, but take a positive approach, try and sell it instead of trying to defend it. I appreciate your time, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you. And I have to apologize to the group. I said opponents, and that's because I came here with one thing on my mind tonight, and that's to convince this council to build a new arena. And I know you came out in the paper and said you prefer the remodel. So I apologize for that. I know you're for Rapid City. And so now we're going to move on. Oh wait, we have one final speaker, Tonchi Weaver.
Can I use the short person microphone? Well, greetings, Mayor and Council and everyone who cared enough to come out tonight. I bring you greetings from the right to the far right, no, the extreme far right. I wanted to point out that there is more than one well-developed plan here. And we've had some good discussions with people on the remodel side, on the new arena side, a lot of good information. But what I would say is we are not for or against. For one thing, we don't know what you're going to do tonight, so I can't really take a position. But what we do believe in is that the people should decide on this issue, because $135 million is a long-term, large-scale debt. It's a generational debt. And you do have the power to put this particular issue on the ballot. That is a rare thing, and I think you should take advantage of it. You are elected and expected to make tough decisions. Probably the toughest decision you're ever going to make is to trust the people on this one. We would appreciate it if you would have the faith to trust the people to do that. You trusted them, after all, once before when you ran for office to make the right decision. So I want to say that low turnout is something that we're all frustrated over. But there is an election coming up in June anyway. It would not be a special election because it's already scheduled. Believe me, if you trust the people, they won't let you down. If you ask them, they will come out to vote. And ask them you should. Now, I don't know which way they will go. I've always been told that the key to happiness isn't having what you want, it's wanting what you have. So there's the issue of what is prudent and what is preferable. But this is a rare opportunity for you really to represent the people, to make a decision, but then ask the people who put you in these seats to verify that you made the right decision and accept the decision that they make in turn. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that's all of the public comment. Thank you for that. Now we're going to go on to mayor's items, and for this, item number 1, I'm going to virtually hand over the gavel to Council President Jason Solomon. I'm going to approach the podium.
You're out of order, sir. Yeah. All right. Thank you all again for your comments tonight, and also thank you to the former mayor's group. I don't believe you're naysayers as well. I believe many of you have been very good for Rapid City. I don't think anybody up here thinks that, so I appreciate you taking an interest and still caring about Rapid City. All right. That said, our current mayor, Mayor Allender, has a presentation for all of us tonight, and so we'll go on to Mr. Mayor.
You have 3 minutes? Okay,
no,
thank you.
he does not have 3 minutes. This is a formal presentation.
And just so you don't get discouraged while I'm talking, my presentation is going to be significantly longer than the other gentlemen we have lined up tonight. So we're not all going to be like me. But I have a number of issues to cover, and I can't think of a better place to cover them than right here in front of all of you and anyone watching this on television. So thank you for being here tonight. I wouldn't expect any less attendance and involvement on such an important issue as this one. This is a very important issue for Rapid City. I'll start my presentation with a summary of where we've been and how we got to the point we are today. From approximately 2012 to 2015, a great amount of effort was put into planning for, designing, and presenting options for a new Civic Center arena. The main emphasis and motivating factor at the time was the Americans with Disabilities Act. On December 1st, 2014, the City Council voted in favor of building a new arena for $180 million in construction costs. A mixture of revenue bonds and certificates of participation was presented as the funding mechanism, with 100% of the annual Vision Fund collection as the funding source to be used for debt payment. At that time, a task force was involved. There were several public meetings in the campaign, paid advertising from opponents and proponents of the new arena. And on March 10th, 2015, a public election was held, at which time the funding for a new arena was defeated in approximately 60-40 margin. The alternative of building a new arena was reported to be $70 million, and that is a figure that was immediately thought to be bogus by industry professionals and a number of citizens, and as it turns out, it was. 3 months later, in June 2015, a city election was held and a new city administration was installed. In February 2016, I appointed the Civic Center Resolution Task Force. And the name's not a mistake. I intended for this task force to be the final task force on this issue. And I committed back then, and I commit to you tonight, that whatever the outcome, whether it be here tonight or in June at the election, we are going to implement one of these two options that are on the agenda. We will not have an opportunity to kick this down the road another couple of years and bring it back. We are going to take some action. I appointed 11 members from the community, none with ties to the visitor industry, and none with a previous known investment in the 2015 ballot issue. The task force was weighted heavily with financial advisors, economists, and business owners. A retired school teacher and basketball coach, as well as a member from the disabled community, were involved. On January 19th, 2017, the task force work was complete. Their charge was to investigate the options, determine the pros and cons of those options, and to present them to me. The task force largely concluded that the new arena was the smarter financial decision, but this opinion was not held unanimously among the task force members, as there, I believe, were two who believed the evidence was not conclusive to support a new arena at that time. In late January 2017, I began assembling a presentation to be delivered to the City Council and the public at large. In June 2017, I began formal presentations of the issue at hand to renovate the Barnett or to build a new arena. Since that time, I have made 34 public and private presentations to 1,228 people. 7 of those presentations were to 467 people, and presentations held in the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center and included a tour of the Barnett Arena. At this time, 4 more presentations are scheduled through March 13th. And I also did an online version. It's on YouTube. You can find the presentation at www.barnettarena.com. And it's a little boring. I would encourage you to go to a public presentation as an alternative. Each public presentation I hosted was structured with a presentation to include the history of the Civic Center, the challenges we're facing with the Barnett, and the pros and cons to either remodeling or building a new arena to remedy these challenges. And the pros and cons on that presentation are the words of the Resolution Task Force. They're not my words. Following the presentation, a question and answer period is provided along with a tour of the Barnett Arena for any interested attendees. After the first presentation, public presentation on September 14th, 2017, I decided to start conducting an informal poll after each presentation to collect input and gauge where that portion of our residents stood on the issue. This began on September 25th. It was done for my benefit at the time, but once I had 6 of those public presentations under my belt and that data from this informal exit polls, I eventually provided that to the City Council along with all of the comments. And it was a simple ballot, a checkbox for remodeling the Barnett and a checkbox for building new and a place for comments. Not all presentation goers participated, And the figures, we're not selling the figures as a scientific survey by any means. But we made the poll available to 443 people. 288 took the opportunity to participate and provide their input. So here's generally what the results of those exit polls indicate. For remodeling the Barnett, there were 8.5 people who decided that they would rather remodel. To build new, there were 274.5 decided to build new. That's 95.3%. Undecided, there was 4, and one person chose both. In addition to the polls, I've had the opportunity to mingle with the community over this extended period of time. And as you might imagine, and as these gentlemen sitting out here know, when you're mayor of Rapid City, you're mayor all the time. At the grocery store, at the hardware store, around the neighborhood. And this face-to-face feedback I've received over the past year and a half specific to this issue has been overwhelmingly in support of a new arena. And in that feedback, I can't tell you the number of times someone has referenced and compared the 2015 option to the 2018 option. This is consistent with the feedback received over numerous presentations and other public gatherings, and I've come to believe that the majority of people in Rapid City who will watch a presentation or understand the facts behind the issue prefer investing in a new structure rather than expending millions on the old one. This was when I made the decision to engage with Stone Planning and Tegra to assist with this project. And to the point of the question is, why is the market analysis so late getting to the council? That's because I would not have spent money on a market analysis had the feedback up to that point been negative. So waited till the last minute intentionally to make sure I had all the facts I could have at the given time, and then we moved forward with it. So Rapid City has a rich history as being one of the nation's leading markets in the visitor industry. Gold was discovered in the Black Hills in 1874 by then Lieutenant Colonel George Custer and his men. As a result, this caused a massive influx of gold seekers. Rapid City was unofficially founded in 1876 as Hay Camp by a group of disappointed miners, based on the reality of there being no gold near Rapid City. The first Rapid City settlers dubbed Rapid City Gateway to the Black Hills as a response to not finding gold. 1 square mile of land was used as Rapid City's border, with 6 blocks designated as the business district. And the new focus at that time was to supply the miners. Officially founded as Rapid City in 1882, tourism had become a major industry by the 1890s. By 1900, Rapid City had survived a boom and a bust, yet was established as an important regional trade center for the upper Midwest. And related to that, 1900 was the only year Rapid City's population ever went backwards. It's been growing ever since. There were a number of important early developments in our area that shaped who we are today. Between 1927 and 1941, Mount Rushmore was constructed. In 1940, the Army Air Corps Base, which we now call Ellsworth Air Force Base, was opened. Rapid City's population doubled between 1940 and 1948 due to the influx of military personnel and the economic benefits of the government payroll. In April 1972, Rapid City voters approved a measure to create what we now refer to as the Vision Fund. It was a half-cent sales tax specific to the construction of the Civic Center. At the same time, they approved the 1% gross municipal receipts tax, otherwise known as the BBB tax, and that stands informally for the Bed, Booze, and Board tax. 2 months later, in June 1972, the Black Hills suffered a devastating flood, And in addition to the loss of life, the property damage in Rapid City alone was $100 million. And in today's dollars, that would be $600 million. A good portion of Rapid City's infrastructure was severely damaged during this time, yet plans moved forward to build the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. Construction of the Civic Center began in 1975 and was complete in 1977. Rapid City and its Civic Center has enjoyed being South Dakota's largest and most used convention and entertainment center from 1977 to as late as 2014, when the Sioux Falls Sanford Premier Center opened. The Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, including the Barnett Arena, have been in operation for the past 41 years. The biggest change in the past 41 years? The entertainment and convention markets have changed for the better. The music industry has changed significantly. There are now 83 million millennials. That's more than any of the rest of us. They are the largest generation alive in America. 83 million those people. 83 million millennials, 84% of which report regularly traveling throughout the U.S. to find entertainment experiences. It's a priority that baby boomers such as myself cannot fully understand. The fact remains, we are slowly being outsourced by what is now the largest generation in America, the millennials. It's a hard fact to swallow. What has not changed in the past 41 years is the Barnett Arena. By the way, the Rapid City Auditorium at 7th and Quincy Street was demolished in its 45th year. These buildings have a useful life, not so much as it pertains to durability, but its functional usefulness. Times change. Rapid City has enjoyed decades of benefits from the visitor industry. It's only fitting and proper that we invest in it, reinvest in it from time to time. Each option on the agenda tonight has a risk versus reward ratio. And this is not science. There's no formula that will convince us with 100% certainty that one option is better over the other. This has to come with our judgment and our analysis of the available data. The rehabilitation option appears to be safer to some, primarily, in my opinion, because it's known and less money. The risk could be seen as minimal, but with the exception of becoming legally and ethically compliant in our agreement with the Department of Justice, there is no reward. We will not sell a single additional ticket. In fact, less seating will be available for purchase. No additional square footage will be created, so our current events needing to expand, such as the Black Hill Stock Show and Rodeo, the LNI basketball tournament, the sports show, and the upcoming home show will not gain space. We will not attract a single additional trade show based on that remodel. The rehabilitation option is an expense. The new building option appears to have more risk because it represents the unknown. What if, say those that doubt, what if? And that's a real question that normal people have to ask. So how do we bridge that risk gap? With data, market information, facts, and an acknowledgement of the changing times. The risk of the new arena, in my opinion, is limited to a couple of major issues. One of them is the future success of a new facility. And to make us feel more comfortable about that, we have the force multiplying effect of the Sioux Falls Sanford Premier Center. You know, when all the car dealers went up north of the interstate, I thought they were crazy. That how can they compete with each other being next door to the other one? When Jack's Camper Sales moved in out on the interstate right next to what was then Mid-States Camper Sales, I knew the owner of Mid-States, and I went out and said, my gosh, this must be terrible for you. And he said, business has never been better. It increased by double-digit % as soon as Jack's opened. It's good for everybody. Also making us feel more comfortable is the entertainment industry's renewed priority of traveling shows. In 1977, when the Civic Center was opened, you were still buying 12-inch vinyl records. At some point there, and someone else will have to answer this, 8-tracks were introduced, and then cassettes, and then CDs, and those were the money makers. So the traveling acts went from place to place to build excitement about their product, and their product was the hard version of their music. Today things are different. We have music downloads. So now when you like a certain performer and a certain song, you can download that song. You don't have to get the other 8 duds that come on that LP. So their profit on selling music is way, way down, and they are making up for it with a renewed emphasis on traveling shows. And the market provides evidence of this. We have the ability for our current signature events to expand. I should have stayed home from the sports show because when I went there, I was confronted by dozens of vendors who wanted to know when they are going to get more space. The show sold out, a long list of people who wanted space there and can't have it. I know that's been an issue with the Black Hills Stock Show and Rodeo as well, and the LNI. The LNI publicly stated in 2016 that they want to expand by another 1,500 students, but the Civic Center is holding them back. And finally, the ability to attract new trade shows. Trade shows are those multiple-day events, such as the trade show with the Black Hills Stock Show and Rodeo, where over 300,000 people come in the doors of the Civic Center. More information on these topics will be presented when we hear from Stone Planning and also Civic Center Director Craig Baltzer. The other issue that relates to risk is the ramifications of expending $130 million. This can be intimidating, but there are important facts to consider. As already stated, we will have in hand, set aside specifically for either option, $25 million. That will leave us bonding about $105 million. A combination of revenue bonds and certificates of participation will likely be used. That hasn't been determined yet, but I would say that's likely. And that will mean that the city will not encroach on its debt limit. South Dakota's debt limit is arbitrarily set at 5%. It's not based on your ability to pay. It's not based on your credit rating. It's not based on anything other than the total valuation of your city, and which ours is around $5 billion. Rapid City has an excellent credit rating. 54% of the current Vision Fund collections will be used for debt service in year one. And as the years proceed, that percentage will decrease. But in year one, 54% of the annual Vision Fund collections will be used for debt service. In 2015, that figure was 100%. This will keep approximately $5.5 million in the first year available for funding important projects for the community, as Mayor McLaughlin mentioned. And it will also provide security in the scenario of a major recession, such as we had in 2009, a 46% safety barrier to protect against the urge of future administrations to raise taxes or reduce services in other areas. One of the major complaints about the 2015 plan was that it's going to raise my taxes. And I think most of us at the time said, oh, it probably won't do that. But if you take the template of the 2009 recession and bring it forward into today's times, if you're using 100% of your revenue source and now you have less money than your debt payment, that money has to come from somewhere. And in the case of this current plan for a new arena, We have 46% of the vision funds in case of that unlikely event. It happened in 2009, it can happen again. This will not result in raising taxes. So I think as part of my presentation, we have to acknowledge and talk about the opposition to building a new arena. And I've been there for all 34 presentations so far, and for the next 34 or however many it will take to get this word out. It's been mentioned that government should not be in the entertainment business. Our history shows, and I'm here to reiterate, that we are not in the entertainment business, but we are, in fact, in the visitor business. It is our economy. It's been mentioned that we have great infrastructure needs and that spending more than $100 million on an arena could not be justified based on our current infrastructure. And this thinking is understandable. However, I don't believe our city council or the citizens at large would allow the Vision Fund to be converted solely to infrastructure spending. Further, we are just as behind, and no more, on infrastructure than any other city in America. And that's because if government's doing its job right, it has to balance interests. We must always look to balance the interests. Even following the Rapid City flood and the massive rebuilding that took place, this city continued with the Civic Center. We don't have to find ourselves in a dilemma where we say it's either infrastructure or an arena. We can have both. I've had a great amount of feedback regarding the Vision Fund, and I know many citizens voted no in 2015 for the sole fact that it used 100% of the Vision funds. The Vision Fund is a sales tax paid by everyone, including our visitors. And although there is room for debate on this issue, I am simply stating that the city will not likely divert $100 million in Vision funds to infrastructure as an alternative to funding an arena or other important projects. It's been mentioned that Rapid City lacks the population base to support a large arena. Think back to 1972 when Rapid City's population was slightly over 40,000 people. And we built an arena with 10,500 seats, enough for 1 out of every 4 of us to go sit in that building if we chose to. Today our population is nearly 75,000 and our arena capacity, for a concert, for example, is about 6,800 because we don't set the rules on how the setup goes in that arena. That is set by the promoter, set by the artist. So we can fit between 6,800 and 8,000 or so, depending on the configuration. Rapid City citizens, I don't believe, have ever exclusively filled that arena. We rely on our visitors to do that. We have documentation that for concerts and trade shows, the majority of attendees are from out of town, and many of the attendees are from other states. Just recently, Old Dominion was here in Rapid City. Did anybody go? 3,300 people. I guess they're an up-and-coming country group. I've never heard of them. They played to a small audience of 3,300 in that arena. 20.9% of those attendees were from 27 other states. This is a consistent trend that is seen in our large venue events, and virtually all of our events in the past several years in the Barnett have been in the off months, from September through April. Just about 21% from other states. People travel for events, including entertainment and trade shows. I've heard that Sioux Falls opening their Sanford Premier Center will preclude Rapid City from being successful with the new arena. The data shows the opposite. Major promoters are looking for show routes so that they can stop somewhere along the way to set up another show and keep paying the bills. Recently, Sioux Falls officials, when I say recently, I'm talking about within the last, it was actually in October, we met with Sioux Falls officials. They indicated a recognition that they're missing traveling show bookings because there's not a logical next venue west on I-90. And going to Billings is too far, and in most cases going to Casper is too far. Sioux Falls having an arena is a force multiplier rather than a competitive challenge. I received comments about high ticket prices and even a suggestion to subsidize ticket prices with taxpayer funds. Amazingly, people's willingness to travel for entertainment makes a ticket price an apparent minimal inconvenience. I believe the market is genius when it's allowed to work. And concerning the traveling show industry, the market is working. It's true that concert tickets costing upwards of $200 seems to be cost prohibitive for some of us. For me, it is philosophically prohibitive. I will not be standing in line for a $200 concert, but there will be people there. We are seeing that more and more. The new arena and the shows will attract, the new arena and the shows it will attract will not be for everyone, but it will benefit everyone. The location has been brought up a number of times, and suggestions have been made to move the arena near I-90 for convenience. Practically, this move is cost prohibitive. Functionally, this move would not allow us to expand on our existing trade shows and conventions and would not allow us to attract new ones. And fundamentally, this idea is contrary to our philosophy on infill development. Parking has been brought up more than a few times. And as you know, we feel strongly about parking. The former mayor's article referred to the current parking as scarce, but the fact remains, today at the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, we are parking less cars with more parking spaces than any other time in history. That arena held 10,500 people on its opening day in 1977 when Elvis Presley were here. I think Wes and Gladys were there. Where did those people park? The answer is anywhere they could find. I was a police officer and I worked security at many of these events in the 80s, and parking was everywhere, all throughout the neighborhoods. Blocks away, people walked in droves to get there, and this is typical arena practice. And all of this in the old days, Elvis Presley and the older days, all without the aid of those east parking lots. Central High School, with its expansion, has also expanded their parking lot. It's not that the parking situation couldn't be better. And it certainly is a few times a year inconvenient. You might even say, with events going on at the high school, theater, ice arena, and other meeting rooms, parking is a problem. And as I stand here pitching this idea to everyone, it can be a problem, but in my mind, it cannot be a $25 or $30 million problem. And if we were to expend $25 or $30 million for a parking ramp, it would not be the magic pill that alleviates all parking issues. Rapid City has just as much, and in many cases more, available parking for events than other arenas in our region, going by a parking space to arena seat ratio. If we build a new arena, which consumes an unknown amount of parking spaces on the west side, anywhere from probably 200 to 300, we will have a similar parking availability as Sioux Falls. It's been said that the Sioux Falls Arena has an advantage over our proposed arena because they are privately managed and Rapid City is publicly managed. The difference or advantage of private versus public management is not a financial one. For a city that's never had an arena before, it should look to private management to acquire an adequate level of expertise in facility management and event coordination. In Rapid City's case, we have an event center management legacy that offers 41 years of success on its resume. Additionally, Craig Baltzer, the executive director, has experience both in private management and public management, and coincidentally has worked for the same private management company that currently manages the Sioux Falls Arena. There is no perceived advantage over converting Rapid City's management strategy from public to private. comments have been made regarding the ticketing system used by the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center. Some have stated that our ticketing system does not offer advantages that are offered by other ticketing systems such as Ticketmaster. The Civic Center ticketing system is Paciolan, which has an impressive record of event ticket sales. More than 37 years of serving live entertainment organizations, over 500 organizations that sell through this system, over 120 million tickets sold annually. 85 professional sports organizations use the same system as we do, as do 19 regional ticket partners, over 100 arenas and convention centers, 75 performing arts venues, over 170 clubs, theaters, and other venues, and 120 college athletic teams. Paciolan is known as one of the leading ticket sales organizations in professional sports as well as arenas and convention centers. And having said all that, we're open to looking at different ticket vendors. The main difference between Ticketmaster and the company we use are the service fees. They're significantly higher. And finally, and perhaps the elephant in the room, is the idea that the mayor, the city council, or just the city in general is shoving this issue down the voters' throats. I'm not making these words up. These are criticisms that come my way. Shoving the issue down the voters' throats. Obviously, there's some emotions tied to the sentiment, and some of the 60% of the 31% of the voters who voted in 2015 take offense to this issue being brought to the forefront. So, on initiated measures, South Dakota law requires a one-year waiting period before the government repeals or changes an initiated measure. But on a referred measure, there's no such time limit. Clearly, it's not a legal issue, and in my opinion, it's ethically appropriate to bring this issue back 3 years later based on the fundamental differences in the 2015 plan and the 2018 plan, and the financial ramifications between the two options, and the disorganized and perhaps even disingenuous campaign in 2015 that culminated with a public vote. Fundamentally, I cannot see how offering this issue again, which is just as referable as it was in 2015, shoves anything down anyone's throats. Failing to bring this issue back to the public under these circumstances would be a dereliction of duty on my part. Clearly the path of least resistance, clearly better for my campaign report card, but not the right thing to do. There's a desire, as we heard tonight, desire for the city to bring the issue forward as an initiated measure, rather than putting the people in a position to refer it to a public vote. The city's position is that it lacks the legal authority to initiate measures. Now, Mayor Hanks brought up the codified law that says something about that. And recently, a South Dakota legislator, as well as former Mayor Hanks, cited this codified law as an authorization for cities to do so. And so we sent it to our legal authority, the city attorney, who developed an opinion. And then he sent it to our bond counsel, our legal counsel in Minneapolis, Minnesota, who deals specifically with bond issues, to research this law and render an opinion. And they agreed with Joel Landine that this issue does not authorize us to initiate this measure. That, and the city attorney can explain it better than I can, but I will just say that it's an issue of the statute that was provided tonight being referred to out of the context of other necessary related statutes. I contacted a member of the South Dakota legislature and inquired about enacting some legislation to enable cities to initiate measures. The response was not favorable, and that legislator urged that the city council needs to be put into a position to perform their prescribed duties and then let the citizens refer it. In other words, there's a process to get this to a public vote, and therefore no other process is needed. We do trust the people. I believe if we felt we had legal authority to initiate this measure, it would be much cleaner, much more fair, but we don't believe we can go against legal counsel's advice and put this on the ballot ourselves. That's the problem with lawyers. When you ask them a question, you are sometimes stuck with the answer. I believe these lawyers are correct. I have no reason to doubt them. And maybe we can get some kind of a different opinion on it, but for this issue, we lack the legal authority. One question's been brought up repeatedly regarding the ultimate fate of the Barnett Arena should we build a new one. If the council, then the voters, approve building a new arena, there will be a 2.5 to 3 year time period for design and construction. And I believe that that 3-year period is more than adequate to design a plan, find related funding, and adopt a plan execution timeline. Conversely, it does not make sense to come up with an ironclad plan not knowing if the council or the voters will approve a new arena. Please keep in mind the only thing we have to do with the Barnett Arena to achieve compliance is to stop using it as we use it today. The large majority of the ADA issues in the Barnett are above the floor level. And nowhere in this plan are we intending to or even suggesting that we build a new arena and then go back to the Barnett and invest $25 million more into that space. I believe some deconstruction will occur. We're still studying what other arenas are doing with their other facilities are doing with their old arena. I believe some deconstruction will occur with the Barnett to transform it into a multi-purpose room, a big empty room. A major local employer has indicated to me that they have difficulty hiring young employee talent based on the lack of amenities in our area. Local young professionals have commented to me recently that the lack of modern entertainment options is one of the deciding factors in young people leaving our area and a deterrent to other young people moving here. None of that makes sense to me, but it doesn't have to. We have reason to believe this is a real issue. We have something in common with the city administration and the city voters who approved the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center in the 1970s. We're not building it for ourselves as much as we are building it for future generations, our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. Those city council members in the early 1970s may not even be with us anymore, although I did talk to one at a public presentation, and it was very interesting. But this is not being built for us. I have to confess that in 2015, I voted for building a new Civic Center arena, and I did so solely on faith. I looked back at 40 years of success of that Civic Center, and taking into account, I felt like I knew the community being in public service, but knowing what I know now, I'm glad that measure failed. It was the wrong plan. It was too much. It was too big. And it was laced with political fuel to get people to buy into it. And as you can tell, this 2018 plan has none of that. So, if this issue goes to a public vote, which I assume it will, I will vote yes again. But when I vote this time, I will be basing my vote on data, market information, facts, and the reality of a changing time. Tonight, the City Council has on the agenda two options: to rehabilitate the existing Barnett Arena or to build a new arena. In other words, one option is to invest in our future, and the other is to expend funds on the present. I'm asking this City Council to show Rapid City what you stand for, to make a decision that will benefit all of us for decades. a decision that will show this community we are capable of having and committing to a vision just like those folks who sat in a much dumpier building than you're in, who voted for the first Civic Center. So I'm asking you to vote tonight in favor of building a new arena. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While the mayor comes back up to chair the rest of the meeting, we'll invite David Stone from Stone Planning to give us a presentation on the updated feasibility study.
Thank you, and I promise I will be briefer than the mayor was. So my name is David Stone. My firm is Stone Planning, and we were hired to do the feasibility study for this concept. Let me grab my keyboard here. So I formed Stone Planning last year. I've been doing this kind of work, working in this industry, generally in the planning of sports entertainment facilities for about 20 years now. Since forming the firm last year, some of our clients have been the city of Seattle as they went through the process of planning a 600 plus million redevelopment of Key Arena, which is their main arena. La Vista, Nebraska, which is a suburb of Omaha, in the planning of a kind of a multi-purpose indoor-outdoor entertainment venue. Robert Morris University, which is a school in Pittsburgh, in the planning of their new arena, and the Sports and Convention Authority of Washington, D.C., in the planning of their new arena. Over the years, just a kind of a short list of examples of some of the projects I've been involved with. A lot of these are mostly arenas, some complexes like the Civic Center that have a collection of facilities, an arena, a theater, a convention center, et cetera. A lot of these happen to be mid-sized arenas, in the roughly 10,000 seat range. A lot of them happen to be in the, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them in the Midwest, upper Midwest region. A lot of them are newer facilities that replaced older facilities. So again, just a sample of facilities stretching from Anchorage to Honolulu to Bangor, Maine. So with that said, this next handful of slides are kind of an executive summary of the full report that you have, hitting on a few major subjects. So first, to start with the existing Barnett Arena, obviously we looked through the operations for the past handful of years of the entire complex, all the events that used all of the facilities, individual facilities, multiple facilities. We isolated the events that used Barnett only and Barnett and other facilities on the campus. Barnett Arena, as many of you probably know, at least by now, does not host a lot of events these days. It's an average of about 30 per year in the last few years, which compared to the other arenas that we looked at in our report is a very small number. It's essentially functionally obsolete. It cannot accommodate modern events of the types that have been spoken about already tonight. I won't go through the full list of the ADA issues and the shortcomings it has, but again, it is not able to host, for many reasons, the modern events that are otherwise touring through the area and some local events that could be held there as well. Looking at the events that have used Barnett and the rest of the complex, if you look at the last few years, the decrease in attendance for the overall complex has been largely attributable to the decrease in attendance at Barnett Arena for the very reasons that I mentioned above here, a minute ago here. In my mind, the ADA improvements, and I think the mayor touched on this as well, while it would accommodate certain people better, certainly in the eyes of, say, a promoter or an event or a rights holder, it would not make the arena any more attractive for their show that's coming through the arena. It would not help them sell more tickets, and as I think the mayor said, it would, if anything, help them sell fewer tickets. A promoter who has a concert, they're looking at their gross revenue potential. This does not help that, while it does accomplish other things, certainly. And as we've seen in recent years, and would expect to happen in the future if nothing were to happen to the arena or even the ADA improvements, that its usage and performance would continue to decline as it becomes even more obsolete and less attractive and less able to not only attract but accommodate most kinds of modern events. The mayor touched on a little bit of this as well, but looking at kind of the entertainment environment, again, it has gone from, at least in terms of concerts and music, from people buying, you know, when was the last time someone in here bought a CD, for example? That used to be the bulk of a touring artist's income. Now it's kind of flipped. They used to tour to help support CD sales. Now they're touring because that's how they make money. So the number of events, the number of shows that are available now is more than ever. Ticket sales are higher than they have ever been. The number of tickets sold, even though ticket prices are higher than they've been in the past. So it's as others have said, it's a very good time to have the venue because there's so much content available now, and even new kinds of content that weren't available in the past. Again, it's been said already tonight, but Rapid City is very well located geographically to pick up on some of the events and benefit from the other facilities in this size range, generally speaking, that have been built in the last, say, 5 or 10 years. Not every single event that tours through the area will stop here, of course, but you're well positioned to pick up some of them, certainly. So all the market analysis that we did in the report led us to making some conclusions and recommendations. We think that a new modern arena that can accommodate these events physically, you know, with all the I don't want to say bells and whistles, but all of the amenities and characteristics that a new arena would have in terms of sight lines and an appropriate size of a floor and the ceiling height and the rigging capabilities and the acoustics and the number and the locations of the back and house spaces with a minimum capacity of 10,000 plus for concerts. Again, not only for the local market here, but to be able to benefit from the events that are coming through the market, through the area and the region that you can't pick up right now. In addition to the new events that are possible for the market, again, it's been said already tonight, but a new arena would certainly be a better host for the events that are already using the complex and in many cases are kind of landlocked and need more square footage and can bring more vendors, more attendees to the complex if they have more square footage. And yes, we think the benefit of having the square footage of whatever the future of Barnett Arena is, but again, not as an arena, as a multi-purpose floor, basically, will also benefit these events. And I agree with what the mayor said, that the facility should, and the complex overall, should continue to be managed by the city because it has done a great job doing it over the 40 plus years. It meets the city's goals. It is self-sustaining. It has done a great job with what it has so far, and I see no reason to change that. So what that means for the future of not only a new arena itself, but the complex overall, starting in 2017, the last calendar year, the complex generated a net operating income of about $1.2 million. Based on their budgeting, they expect that to decline over the next few years, generally because of the declining performance of Barnett Arena. One thing I think I forgot to mention earlier is that as the attendance in the last few years of the complex overall has decreased, the vast majority of that attendance decrease has been directly attributable to the decrease in attendance at Barnett Arena. And again, we expect over time Barnett to become less and less useful. With a new arena, for the purposes of the projections we've made, we've assumed that a new arena could open in 2021, which is a little less than 3 years out from now. So you add a new facility, add the square footage and everything else associated with it, certainly the expenses would go up, but the revenues would go up as well. The revenues would grow and increase by a little bit more. With the new facility, you'd be able to generate and tap into revenue sources that don't currently exist on campus, things like naming rights, additional, certainly the greater attendance and selling tickets and things like that, but being able to have more sponsorship opportunities, whether it's naming rights and premium seating. The benefit of adding a new arena in terms of the expenses, that you're not building a standalone arena where you have to have a full staff, because that full staff is already in place. Certainly you'll have a full staff for the new arena, but again, it's already in place. There would be certainly an incremental expense for some new full-time positions. The part-time labor would go up more by having more square footage and doing more events. But again, you've got the staff largely in place that has already been ramping up in anticipation of something like this. So your expenses would be relatively, your increase in expenses would be relatively modest. So crunching all those numbers, and it's all in the report, the gory details of it, we project that beginning in 2021 with the new facility, that NOI that today, or at least most recent completed year, is $1.2 million, would increase to $2.8 million. And again, that also benefits from not having the debt service on the books of the facility, with the funding source already identified and being paid through the Vision Fund. We didn't do an economic impact study per se on this in this round. It's been done in the past. As has been said earlier tonight, we know that a lot of tickets are sold from people from throughout the state, from other states, throughout the region, throughout the country, from trade shows, conventions. We know those people are coming to town, staying often for multiple days from outside of the market, and that's where the economic impacts come from. We did look at the ticket sales from a set of the entertainment events, and again, yes, we found that the tickets are being bought from really all over, whether it's during the high tourist season of the summer largely, or from the fall to spring. People are still coming here as recently as this weekend from really around the country for events. And again, going back to the current Barnett Arena, as it would be expected to kind of decline in its usage over the years, certainly that would affect its economic impacts too. You know, fewer tickets being sold, fewer people going through the building, fewer people from out of town spending money staying in Rapid City. So that kind of the baseline that you have today, not only in terms of events and attendance and the revenues and expenses, but the economic impacts also would further erode, and with the new arena bringing more events, larger events, the economic impacts would also increase. And that was that's my last slide. I guess, I don't know if questions will be coming later, but we'll be here.
If you'll stand by for questions when the council's debating, they may have a question for you. Okay, next on the agenda is presentation on the status of the Barnett Arena from Craig Baltzer, the director of the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and citizens. I don't have a PowerPoint. I don't have a learned speech. I have a few chicken scratches on a piece of paper. But I was asked to be here, and I was very happy to be here and speak, because for this whole process, I was asked to stay on the bench and be in the background, and there's so many times I wanted to speak. So I've given the opportunity tonight, and I greatly appreciate it. I think this is relevant. A lot of you know me. Some of you know my background, but many of you don't know my background, and I think it's relevant to the topic tonight. I want to share that with you. I'm going to fast forward the part I grew up in Sioux Falls and went to University of South Dakota, and that whole time I was working in arenas, part-time jobs, and all that stuff is where I got my beginnings. But let's start my professional career. When I graduated from University of South Dakota in 1988, I moved to Minneapolis looking for a career in this industry. I interviewed with venues, and I interviewed with production companies, and I landed a job with a production company, Sesame Street Live. I was on tour with Sesame Street Live for about 8 years. This was my gig. 9 months out of the year, I was a Sesame Street guy. We had 4 tours around the country. 2 of them were large tours, 2 of them were small tours. 2 large tours, 4 semi-trucks, major arenas. The 2 smaller tours, theaters, 2 semi-trucks. It was a lot of fun, and I had a great time, and I learned a lot about our industry, and I got to know every venue in the country. I even got to go to Europe on a tour with Sesame Street there. On my summer months, because Sesame Street went the school year, on my summer months, I'd often learn to pick up other gigs. You know, you'd have a rock and roll tour that lost some accountant on their tour and they needed a guy there, or somebody to audit box offices on a country concert or whatever. And I picked up some other gigs, so I learned a lot about the industry, even through those part-time gigs in the summertime that I was picking up. But then I had to grow up and settle down and get serious about life, and so I started looking for a job in venues. And I signed on with a company, we talked about it a little bit tonight, SMG. SMG is a management company that started in the late 70s, and all they do is manage venues such as the Civic Center and other venues like stadiums and convention centers and all across the nation. They were the first management company to ever start, and they've been the largest ever since. I started with them because what better place to go get a job in a venue than the largest company that there was. And I landed a job in Tampa, Florida, at what was then called the Ice Palace, which is now known as the Amalie Center. It's where the Tampa Bay Lightning play. At that time, when I got the job there, they were 4 months from their opening. They were in their final phase in construction. So I got to learn a little bit about that phase. Opened that building, and I worked there for approximately 6 years. I started off as an operations manager, worked my way up to something called Executive Director of Live Events. I'm not even sure what that meant. But I was involved in booking by the end. I was involved in running marketing, every aspect of live shows. What I didn't run at that time was hockey and arena football, because they had another sports division guy who did that, and I did the live events. But I had a boss, and he was not retiring. He wasn't going away. So I asked SMG to look for me to run my own show. Where can I go to run my own show? And they said, we'd give you a chance in a B market. Let's send you to South Texas. There was 3 buildings coming online at the time. And I chose Laredo, Texas. 10,000 seat venue coming out of the ground at the time. It was a year before they opened that building. In Texas, they can work on building their building year round. So they build them quicker down there, and up here we have winter, and that slows our construction down. But so I got there right when they were, just after they were breaking ground. And I was in part of the construction process, part of the teams that helped work with the architects and help work with the builders, taking that building out of the ground. And then I operated it for 4 years after we opened. A fantastic experience, and I really learned there that, hey, I'm kind of a B-market guy. I come from South Dakota. I'm a B-market guy. This is my thing. But I want to move back up north because those are my peeps. I need to go back up north. Talked to SMG at the time, and they had a building coming online in Idaho. It was an existing building that was struggling, and they were hiring SMG to come in and fix all the problems. And I became the general manager of a 12,000-seat arena, 11,000-seat amphitheater, and a top 10 in the country horse park, equine center, my first venture into equine centers. I was with that job for about 9.5 years, almost 10, and that was a great experience to be in Idaho with SMG there. SMG and I parted ways 3.5 years ago, 3 years and 4 months ago, when I decided I needed to come closer to home. And I took this job in Rapid City. And I want to thank you all for having me here. My wife and I love it here. We love the job. I love the building. I love the Rapid City. I had been away from South Dakota virtually for 30 years, and I wasn't sure when I took the job here if I wanted it. I came here and I saw how Rapid City's changed over the years while I was gone, how the Civic Center's changed over the years and changed with the times over the years and grown. I got to meet the staff when I came in here for an interview, and I thought they were outstanding, outstanding staff. This wasn't a situation where a guy like me would have to come in and clean house. And in fact, I could come in here and learn from them a little bit. They were an outstanding group. So I'm very happy to have the job here. And why this is all relevant is because, well, first let me say that if you come to one of our 2 o'clock meetings at the Civic Center, it's where all of our management gets together, and we meet every Monday, 2 o'clock. If you come to one of those, I can tell you there's well more than 200 years of service in the room. It's not just me with this 30-year history and touring around the country. We've got folks that have been here for 10, 12, 15, 20 years that have been at the Civic Center running this venue. And that's why I could learn from them, because there's a lot of specifics about this venue or any venue. The other thing I would like to say is David Stone kind of pointed out that he's studied all kinds of venues, and some of them are like Rapid City with multiple venues together. But I'll tell you this. I challenge you to go find one exactly like it. 2 arenas, a theater, and all those convention facilities all tied into one unit. And what is great about that is being able to use that all together at times. For the stock show, for L&I, ICPC, we used probably 2/3 of the property altogether. So that's important. But why my background was relevant here, and I can speak for my management staff as well, is that, no offense, David, but we didn't need your study to tell us what we already knew. We're here to talk about the Barnett Arena. It's a great facility, and I remember it from back in the days when I was growing up in South Dakota, came to some basketball tournaments out here and things. And what a great facility. But it is true. Take it from the guy who talks to the promoters. Take it to the guy who talks to the agents. Take it from some of our staff that's here present tonight that have to shoehorn the shows in to get them in and face them when they say, you know what, in the future, we just can't play here anymore. The product is not working the way it used to, and it is coming up short. And it's been going that way for about 10 years or longer. You can take a look at the numbers that come across my desk every day when we're evaluating that and projecting forward. The venue, I wish I could say it could be expandable. Talking to structural engineers, it doesn't seem to be, or at least not at a great cost that is kind of equivalent to building a new one, as I understand. The theater does its job. We do Broadway theater in there. We do even small concerts in there that are meant for theaters. We do comedians and magicians, and we do local things like dance studios and choir productions in there. The ice arena was built largely for hockey. It does hockey very, very well. We've had to, because of the Barnett Arena, start forcing some smaller and mid-sized concerts in there. And it's not really designed for that, but we're making them work, and we're having some success with that. That part's really not broken. The convention facilities, our growth in the convention facilities with the help of Visit Rapid City has been growing. ICPC was phenomenal last year. We're doing a lot of tournament play and things like that. And those convention facilities, they're not just about conventions. We do so many banquets and so many meetings. And we have so much going on there. Trade shows, my God, we have some of the largest trade shows, and you guys have probably the largest trade show in the whole state there. Fantastic. The part that's not owning up to its level is the Barnett Arena. Barnett Arena is supposed to be our big room. It's supposed to drive large ticketed events. That's the tool that's not performing the level we need it to. Those large ticket events drive our bottom line. They drive the impact to the businesses in town. They drive taxes, and with that, BB&B and vision funds. That's the part that is not happening. When you take a look at, we're booking Luke Bryan for this September. Y'all buy tickets and come see the show. It's in the ice arena at less seating. Why is that? Why would they choose to do that? I've tried to get them into the Barnett Arena. I really tried because I wanted to maximize seating as best I can. Maybe get 500 more seats or 600 or 800, whatever it would have been. But it wouldn't fit. Now, both arenas, the show doesn't fit in height. But in this case, it wouldn't fit in the length either in the Barnett, but it did in the ice arena, so they chose the ice arena. Less seats, less money. What if I told you that Luke Bryant's coming here, and even if we sell out, they lose money? I mean, think about it. Here's a show that's designed to play 8,000 to 10,000 seats, and they're coming here, they're playing our building, and they know they're going to lose money if they sell out. Why would they do that? I don't know. I can tell you why. They need a place to play. We happen to be in the right place on the map to get from point A to point B. Now imagine all those shows that have been going around us in those last couple of years since Sioux Falls built their new arena. They've attracted a lot more shows up here. And how many of the shows went around us and went to Casper or went to Billings or went around us another way in shape or form? How much are we leaving on the table? This isn't all by chance. We don't sit in the Civic Center and wait for the phone to ring. Oh, we got a show. We work constantly at this with relationships with big agencies like Creative Artists Agency and William Morris Agency, with big promoters like Live Nation, largest promoter in the world, AEG, second largest promoter in the world, along with a smattering of smaller ones. I can tell you that you see the look on their face when they say, how much can you do for an end stage concert on 180 degrees? And when you tell them 6,500, 6,700, the eyes glaze over and they move on. Those shows, we're missing so many of them. I am not here to tell you that we can have exactly the same success Sioux Falls. That is a bigger market. It would be ridiculous to think that. But we can have our version of that success. I have talked to creative artists, William Morris Agency, Live Nation, AEG, along with several others. This is not a case of build it, you will come. They will come. All right? This is a case of build it, work your butt off, create your relationships, have my staff out there making it work, and then they will come. We can have that kind of success, and I believe in it. I'll tell you that when I took the job here, I took the job to run the venues that are gifted to me. And I'm very proud to run the venues. And if we choose to renovate the Barnett Arena and not build new, I'm going to be very proud to run that to my best ability as far as I can go. And my staff will too. But if you're going to ask me my expert opinion of 30 years of experience, 22 of those with SMG, the company that manages Sioux Falls, I'm going to tell you that we need to cross this bridge sometime. Now, or 5 years from now, 10 years, we're going to have to cross this bridge. We have got to keep that heartbeat running on that facility and keep the engine running. So I'm asking you to consider building new, and I think it's very important. I'd like to add just a couple things. That was kind of the end of my speech, but a couple things had come up tonight, and I just wrote them down real quick. The topic of where to build, has been coming around and talked about a lot. A lot of people are talking about by the interstate. And there's a lot of reasons not to do that. Keeping the economic impact at our city center so we get the most out of that. Keeping our staff, not creating two different staffs, keeping it all streamlined. Staff and equipment that we have, we can work together in one spot and make it work. But probably the biggest reason, and the mayor touched on it, is not to split it up. You really have, or we have, something special here, having these venues all at once, all together, so we can work on large events all together in one spot. If you put the ice arena, or put the new arena somewhere else, what does that do to our stock show and our rodeo folks that are here tonight? What does that do to our LNI tournament, chasing all over town? What does that do to big conventions, like we had the ICPC last year and all that stuff? And what it also does is stops us from going after even more of that kind of stuff. So I would keep it all together in one spot for that reason. Another thing that's been talked a lot about tonight, and I've heard people talk about it, is why don't we go private? Why don't we go with private management company? First of all, I think there's a misconception out there. Private management companies are not taking the risk on your building. You still have all the same bills, payroll, expenses, utilities, whatever, and you pay a management company. Now, there's a good reason to do it, and the reason why I had a career in a management company for 22 years is because venues that are EA having problems, they're struggling to find the recipe to make it work. Or B, you're building a new arena and you have no experience in running them. And that's when a company like SMG or Spectra or Venue Works comes in, says, let us save the day. For a fee, we'll take care of this for you and we'll run it good. And they're good at what they do. I work for a great company and we parted on good ways. If I was still with SMG and they said, Craig, we want to go to Rapid City and sell them the idea of doing, of having a management company in there, I have no idea what I would try to sell you. You've been running your venue successfully since 1977. I would come in here and say, we'll come in and we'll run it for you, do the same job, and charge you $150,000 a year. I don't know what I would say to you. So take it from a guy who's been there and done that for a company like that. And the last thing, it was brought up about ticketing, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about ticketing. Everybody goes to our website and they see, oh, Got Mine, what's Got Mine, Got Mine, Got Mine. We're not Ticketmaster, and that's true, and Ticketmaster is the largest ticketing company in the world. There's a reason for that. They are built up in major markets to start with, and pretty much every major market in the country is Ticketmaster. A lot of them are anyway. And they have relationships with big companies like SMG. So most every SMG venue is a Ticketmaster venue, all right? They also have a booking relationship with, or a relationship with Live Nation, the largest promoter in the world. We're Paciolan. The difference between Ticketmaster and Paciolan, Ticketmaster is a service. They come in, say, we'll take care of ticketing for you. We're going to charge your folks an arm and a leg in ticket service charges, and we're going to control all that. It's all our money. Paciolan has a second option. We'll do it that way for you, or if you want to control your own service charges and control everything, we'll let you lease our software, our up-to-date, robust software that's equal to Ticketmaster in every way, shape, or form. And you can manage your own program and do it for whatever you want to charge for service charges. We charge enough for service charges to cover our cost in tickets, in ticket company and ticket service charges. Paciolan is probably the second or third largest ticket company out there. They are the #1 ticket company for the second largest management company, Spectra. So they're pretty robust in that realm. The mayor went through where they're at, but I'd like to point out even our neighbors, Fargo, Sioux City, and Casper, are Paciolan, along with all those big places that the mayor was talking about. It's a good system, but I'm not married to it. There are some things we should look at, and I think we should, especially if we build a new venue. We need to consider everything. Paciolan's contract is up, or that we lease their software from them, is up 2019, I believe. So it'll give us an opportunity to look at it, and we're open to that. So thank you, council. Thank you, citizens. Thank you, mayor. If we have questions, I'll be glad to take them at their appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. Now, item number 4, presentation of the owner's representative role, Nate Pearson from Tegra.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. My name is Nate Pearson. I'm a partner at the Tegra Group, and what we are is project advisors. So once we have a project, whether it's a renovation or a brand new addition, we manage the design and construction process on behalf of the city. So Tegra is a Minneapolis-based consulting firm. We were founded 22 years ago. What makes us unique is that we represent owners, and owners only. We don't develop, we don't self-develop, we don't own buildings. We are on the owner's side for anything they do for construction and design. And our backgrounds are inclusive of 15 to 20 years outside of being a consultant, which means we've worked at some of the largest design firms, contracting firms, law firms, and some property management firms throughout the Midwest. We are local, based in Minneapolis, but the vast majority of our work is in Minnesota and South Dakota. In fact, all but one of our employees has either been born in South Dakota or has deep roots in South Dakota, which is why we keep coming back. And our clients take us nationwide. We are not looking for national work. We try to stick to the Midwest region. Some of our projects include the ones you see on the screen, but I would say about a third of our resume includes cultural projects, which is the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, and the Science Museum, Children's Museum, and those types of projects. Another third includes our corporate or office buildings, and one of my projects is actually the Black Hills Energy project up on the hill, where I've been coming out to Rapid City for 2.5 years, and we just moved those guys in, as you know, at the end of last year. And then the last third of our work is sports, arenas, community centers. You can see Target Field, where the Minnesota Twins play. We recently finished the renovation of Target Center, where the Timberwolves and Minnesota Lynx play. We're also constructing the new Major League Soccer facility at 20,000-seat arena in St. Paul. And then down on the bottom is the Prairie Lakes Wellness Center, where the mayor of Watertown, South Dakota, actually hired us to facilitate and implement that project. So what do? We're project managers. Like I said, we're owners' reps. I work on that on your behalf, the city's behalf in this case. And we assemble the design and contracting team. We manage the budget. We create the budget. We manage the budget. We also manage the schedule. It can be a little intimidating, as the mayor said, when you've got $130 million on the table and you're expected to bring that in on budget and on schedule. And that's what we do. We are also here, as the bottom slide says, through project closeout to make sure that you're understanding the building and trained in the commission mechanical and electrical systems are functioning as you've bought, essentially. Project management is kind of a continuing process, was the intent of this slide. The city and the citizens and council have expectations. There are a lot of people who will be involved with the project, which I'll get to in the next slide. And then, of course, we have a budget that we need to meet, and you want to be in on time. And so we are good stewards of that, and we want to be as efficient and stretch every dollar that we can to get the most out of that budget. And this slide is meant to kind of be in, you can't really read it, I understand that, but there are a lot of players who will be involved with whatever project is brought forth, whether it's the geotechnical guy who's digging into the soils or, the AV guy who's wiring low voltage. I mean, we have to understand and get everybody on the same page working toward the same goal. And that's what we do. We manage that, those contracts, we buy in the right manner, and also it's a education to the city, and just understanding and teaching exactly what it is you're getting for that 130 or 26 million. We also prepare documents which include RFPs, requests for proposals. We will negotiate contract agreements and oversee those contract agreements through execution of construction, and we'll manage the closeout process, as we said. And there are a few things that the owner has to buy directly, which include furniture, chairs, tables, plates, things like that. And our buying power in the Midwest and nationwide can be put to use on behalf of the city there as well. So what makes us worth it? We level the playing field, so to speak. We allow our clients to stay focused on their day jobs. You've got a great staff here with the city, but they also have a day job, and we bring our expertise to the table from day one. We also want to make, or I guess allow the city to make sound business decisions, which we will analyze, alternates and options for whatever project is brought forward, and make sure that you're making the right choice. And just by having us on the team, our market knowledge will help you save money as well. This slide, I guess you can measure our success or our implementation by two things. Was it on time, and was it under budget? And we can say in our 22 years we have never delivered anything that has been over budget or has been late. So that's just a quick slide on us. I can answer any questions at any time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we're going to hear from Kevin Andreessen from the Civic Center Task Force, the Resolution Task Force, item number 5.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, citizens. My name is Kevin Andreessen, and I was asked to speak this evening on behalf of our Resolution Task Force, which was comprised of 11 members. I'd encourage you, if you have any questions or comments, to continue to engage this Resolution Task Force, because we largely spent the span of a year at the mayor's request really digging into these issues and understanding what some of the underlying facts and what was really driving these key issues. This was under the facilitation of Dr. Helen Usera. So we basically broke the task force out into 3 core areas, which were ADA, understanding life safety, and then finally understanding economic development and the finance component to understand, what were the mechanisms we could use to fund this project. And then the other side of it would be, what would the economic impacts be, and referencing some of the prior work that had been done by AECOM and others, understanding what are the true impacts to a project to this size. So, kind of conclusions. I know I'm not going to reinvent the wheel up here. A lot of the information became kind of the groundwork of the presentation that went out. We went out as a task force initially, and then the mayor kind of taken the reins from us and continued those presentations to, what the ultimate goal here is to educate and inform people to make the right decision, as they feel, as the facts kind of lay out to them. So as we got into ADA, that one, as we kind of cut into it and we looked at the issues, we brought in a lot of outside experts that helped us understand what those core issues were. We were able to kind of scale and look at some of the construction things, what were needs versus wants, and we were able to kind of compartmentalize and build that into an ADA-based budget. The consensus amongst the group obviously is we don't have an option here to do nothing. We either have to pursue this through a remodel or addressing it through a modern facility that would have this incorporated into the design. The second major component we kind of delved into were life safety issues. Things in the Barnett Arena probably that are most notable would be things like egress and the time it would take, for example, to evacuate that facility, or the exits that get blocked during the stock show. Other issues, air quality and the steps and the way they're designed in there. So basically we broke that down into another segment. We built a budget off of that, and that became kind of the second building block of understanding what our budget would be. And then the third group, led by a group of, we had a lot of financial planners and accountants and financial expertise on the team. Really went in to understand, from a bonding and understanding what, essentially what's our, if we're going to go build something or we're going to remodel something here, what helps us facilitate that, and what can we afford. And a couple of the reports, we didn't, by design, we didn't want to go out and spend a lot of money up front, so we did reference some of the prior work that had been done through AECOM and some of the other outlets. And I think in looking at the new arena, I think they're citing over a $50 million annual impact from a new facility. And if you look at the impact of just the stock show alone at being at almost $22 million annually, I think the growth potential of a new facility offers, a pretty strong return on your investment if you start looking at it in those aspects. Even if you kind of peel that survey back, and I think as we kind of looked at, we've heard a lot tonight about the impact of bringing touring shows through, entertaining our community, but also I think the other major component this group would like to better understand is what's the impact, and bringing some of the key leaders that have been up here and spoke before me tonight to better understand what are one or two more trade show or major conventions coming to this city. How do we make this in, the Black Hills are a real jewel, and how do we make that into an extended vacation and drive those hotel stays, drive those meals, drive those pieces that ultimately drive our sales tax base. So ultimately that broke down into two final recommendations. One was a remodel, which we built a budget for. And then really the new facility was based simply on basically a finance equation, and we've kind of left that to, building a vision and understanding we've got professionals like Craig, and we've got great leadership from our mayor, and understanding that, we can take this forward. And, those details will be, forthcoming as the vision is set. So, as we looked at that as a task force, we didn't have unity initially on looking at. It was just like we hear tonight. There was a lot of great opinions. It was a very respectful process. Very much based in fact. But I think we all came to one key point that I wanted to make tonight, and that is I think we think this just if we do a rebuild, it basically kind of kicks the can down the road. It isn't a game changer for us economically, and what this is going to do for driving further and bolstering further economic development for this city. I think the other part the task force spent a lot of focus on was being fiscally responsible and understanding what can we afford, and really a bottoms-up approach versus kind of looking at going out and shooting for the moon and say, what do we want? We based it on what can we build, and we based that through looking at the vision fund and saying, what if we took about half of that and started there, and then built off of those assumptions. And then I think the most important thing here is just the efforts that have been put in, through the mayor and through the task force in terms of trying to educate people on what our learnings were. We really, in that 12 months I looked at, was just a fact-finding, goal for us to make sure we bring this out to the community and people understand there are options. There's two very viable options here. And, I think there's one that's more of a short-term approach, and I'd say our general consensus would be to look to building the new facility, because I think it supports Rapid City. A lot of you may not know me. I've been here for 24 months. I'm kind of the newbie in town. I've been to Denver 5 times with my family to go to the Pepsi Center and to go to other venues. I'd love to have venues here, to take my children to and to take my family to and enjoy that. And that money would stay in this town if these venues and these tours were coming to Rapid City and I wasn't driving to Denver to attend them. So anyway, I'd like to thank you for your time this evening, and I'll kind of wrap up here. But I think there's been a great vision put forward here. And, I guess our viewpoint as a task force and consensus would be to support, the construction of a new facility based on the merits and economic value that it drives for our community, not only in the near term, but for our children. So, thank you.
Thank you. Now on to non-consent items. Item number 6, to acknowledge discussion from council regarding the Barnett Arena. Go to Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to speak quickly and first because I don't need to sit here and tell you how I feel about this. I think it's pretty well known in the public. I wrote an op-ed piece about 3 years ago on this particular project, and I've been a proponent of a new facility for quite a while, so I'm not going to waste your time with that and justify my vote to you. I just want to take time right now just to say thank you to a number of people. First of all, the former mayors, people say you're naysayers, whatever. I'm not calling you that at all. I think it's important that you step up and have your voice heard. It's your right and your responsibility as a citizen of this community. So, by all means, we welcome your opinions. Obviously, you don't become mayor of this town unless you do care, because it's a pretty thankless job, as most of all you will attest. I'm pretty sure about that. I do want to thank the staff that's taken the time to prepare all the information for all of us and get the information for the bonding, the legal questions, and all that. But I really think it's remiss if we didn't take some time to thank Mayor Allender for going to the very forefront of this early, taking time out of his job. He's the mayor, so it's a full-time job, right? But he has time when he should be with his family, and he has taken 34 times of that we know for sure so far, where he's taken time off, and he could have been with his wife, could have been with his kids, could have been in all kinds of things, but he took the time to educate the public. Whether or not you agree with his opinions or not, he actually stepped up, did that. I very much appreciate it, sir, so thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. I just think it's a very important decision for our community, and I appreciate everybody's support that I've gotten, supporting my position, but I also appreciate the input I've gotten from other people too. So this is a big decision. I will be voting for the expansion, but I want to once again say thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's, people think you're overpaid, but believe me, anybody that's sat in that position knows you're not overpaid by any stretch of the imagination. And, your time is valuable too, and you have a family, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate, once again, the staff. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I will move to acknowledge this discussion. If I can get a second, retain the floor.
Second by Armstrong.
Thank you. And thank you, Alderman Lewis, for your comments, and Mayor Allender as well. And thank you all. You're still here, and you're wishing we wouldn't talk anymore and just vote already. But I do want to thank you for your interest in this, and the community that's not here but are getting it through our media. We have a lot of smart people on both sides of our options tonight to rebuild or remodel, and we respect that, and I respect that people are engaged, whether they agree with me or not. This is not a time for everybody to demonize those they disagree with. We should respect, listen, get all these perspectives, and then we'll make up our minds. But for me, I think this comes down to the kind of community that we want to be, and this is a really interesting conversation that we're having as a community. We've been having for quite some time. I will tell you, and I'm very honest about this, is the vision I have for Rapid City is that we reach for remarkable and refuse to settle for the status quo. I want a community that outlives me, that is way better after I'm gone than it is now. And I'm here because this Civic Center was built right before I was born. I'm 40, and I'm almost the same age as the Civic Center. I guess I'm breaking down too, and I've reached my ceiling height apparently. And but the thing is, it has been an awesome arena for us. A lot of us have memories there. I would love for us to preserve, some Elvis Presley history there. I think there's some really cool things we could do with the existing space. But it is time for something fresh and something new. It is time for Rapid City to level up and actually have something that's remarkable, that people go, oh, wow, that's cool, that draws people here. I love outside money coming in. When I heard a statistic tonight for $1.60 for every $1 spent at the Civic Center comes in, and that people spend $230 and $240 a night, that gets my attention. The economic impact, not just what the Civic Center itself makes, but what it does to the whole community. The rising tide that the Civic Center creates raises all the ships in the communities. And you're talking about all of the businesses and all of our taxpayers, and it helps us a lot, especially on a community so dependent upon sales tax revenue. And whether you think that's a great thing or not, it is what it is. And the fact is, we have millions of people who vacation where we get to live. And so this Civic Center, this arena, is not just for us. It's for our guests. It's for our visitors. And guess what? We get to enjoy it as well. So tonight, just as a spoiler alert, I do plan to support the rebuild option. And it is not without a lot of great thought, and is not without listening to the other side of the equation. Quite frankly, I think there's some valid points that are brought up. And, you know, and I'm kind of excited about what could be. But this is, again, about reaching for remarkable and not settling for the status quo. And quite frankly, the remodel project doesn't get us anything new other than compliance. And that's an expensive project for compliance, which is important, but I'd rather do something that makes a difference and is a game changer. So with that, I'll yield the floor. Thank you, Mayor.
Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. Primarily, I'm known by most people that I kind of look at our revenue streams and our budgets. So primarily, I'm in support of building a new arena to replace the Barnett Arena, or to be our major event center, because we are using sales tax dollars to promote the increase in infusion of more sales tax dollars that also will be generated by supporting many of our businesses in this community. So to me, this is creating a revenue stream instead of a lot of the projects that are very worthwhile that vision funds have been used for. But primarily, if you really think about them, they're just dollar-sucking projects. The Civic Center, or the new arena, actually has, based on past history of the financials of the Barnett Arena, and the entire Civic Center complex can support itself if we give them the right venue in order to make those marketing decisions. So I will be supporting building a new arena. Thank you.
Lisa Modrick.
Thank you, Mayor. I have such a great respect for the mayor's group, because when this came before us in 2015, I followed and listened and heard and listened to the questions that were being asked, and also heard the answers that weren't coming out. So it made a big impression on the community enough so that they voted down something that was really a positive direction for our community. And one of the things that was in that statement that the mayors have and have today is fix the plan. And while I was out there working to get this job right here, it was in 2016 afterwards where the 60%, they voted for fixing the plan. They voted for doing the right thing and knowing that the 2015 plan had not enough plan at all, didn't have enough substance. And the people were telling me, well, get in there and help make it right, because we don't want to see it go down. We didn't vote for it to go down in flames. We voted for fixing the plan. So out of a tremendous amount of respect for the mayor, who worked on exactly that from the mayor's group, fixing the plan, taking that and spearheading it through with a citizens group that worked month after month after month to bring before us the two options. Thank you for not giving us 5 or 10, because that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to two options. And one of which, my spoiler alert, is the replacement option, the investment option, being the right one. I had the opportunity to listen to the group as they were working, and I attended a number of the mayor's presentations throughout these last couple of months. And I didn't do it because I was trying to build up my own support. I did it because I wanted to listen to what the people had to say. I wanted to listen to their questions. And at every single forum, the questions were different. And so it gave you something else to think about. The positive side of those questions was, we need to do the right thing, and investment was the strongest portion of that. And that the group came in not knowing where they felt, and as the mayor had stated on his exit poll, went out at 95% saying, this makes sense. It truly does. It's a fix of the plan. The investment, it's a turnover. When we're talking about our vision fund of only 54% going towards it, which it initially was started for back in 1970s, and then again in 1992 with the vision split, that's the beautiful part of it. It was, we still have retained the 46% to continue the projects and put funds where the Civic Center needs to be, so that we're reinvesting and getting that $50 million annual that is being described as what our investment's going to bring back for a return. The 83 million millennials, my goodness, it just doesn't seem possible, but that is true to be. And you can't hardly talk to anybody younger than my age that's not going somewhere to go see some form of entertainment right now. And gosh only knows what they're spending. And they would rather spend it here and build it, and they will come. We are a world-class destination. ICPC proved it. We've talked about it for a long time, that this is a tourism destination that has a world-class destination attached to it. Now it's been proven. Now the sky is the limit. We can continue an ICPC-style conference once we build new. It's proven, and they rejected the Barnett Arena on purpose. It wasn't world-class. It wasn't what they could use. So just think, if an ICPC can bring all those students from around the world in here, the sky is the limit for where we're going to go with that. We're the visitor business. We're number 2 in tourism in South Dakota. We are number 1 in the Black Hills. So is this important? You betcha. That's why all of you are here, and that's why I believe that the public is listening. So just so that I can share my confidence with the public, I am 1,000% confident in the replacement being the factor, being the investment for this community. It's about today to get it done tomorrow for our future. And I hope our council will feel the same, and I hope the public will too. We did the job the mayor sent us out to do, and that was to fix the plan, and it's been done. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you. As some of you might know, I'll come at this from a little bit different direction just because of my background. My family and myself, I've been involved in the entertainment field for a long time, and I've made this analogy for a lot of groups, but I'm going to go through it once again. When Elvis was here, he had a stage that was 60 foot wide, okay, and 24 feet deep. That's how big it was. I'm in a band, we could probably take that much room up. You know, I mean, it's just old. That's an old thought that it's that, and he was the biggest band, or the biggest entertainer in the world at that time, right? But that's the size he needed. Okay, so now the bands that come here need 60 feet wide. They need 60 feet deep stages. And I know this because my nephew he traveled with Rascal Flatts for 5 years, and he explained this to me. And then he went out on the road with Justin Bieber, so I know that this is a fact, that we need 60 feet deep stages for all the video production, for the dancers, for everything else that needs to happen for stages these days. That's what people want in shows. They want a bigger show, and they're going to pay a bigger price tag for that too. So if we put that in our Civic Center, or the Barnett arenas we have now, that's going to take out 1/3 of our seats. And frankly, that's just not a competitive room at all. Routing, we've got the routing. We can go from Minneapolis, Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Casper, Billings, Portland, but we need the routing that comes through Rapid City, and we can get the bands that'll come here. You know, I heard Lady Gaga earlier, but we can get Rascal Flatts, we can get One Republic, we can get the bands that people want to see now, the younger people want to see. The Vision Funds, yeah, I've been here. I live here. I am a native. Okay, so I saw the whole thing happen from 1972 on out. And I'd like to see some of this money go back to the original intent, which was our Civic Center. Okay, that's what we put the money up first, and it should go back to that for a while so we can have the gem that we used to have and be the destination we used to be. As far as the Deadwood Mountain Grand, it holds 2,000 people. That's just not a competitive thing at all. People are going there now. The smaller concerts are going there. It's not any kind of competition for what would happen with our Civic Center. The millennials, yeah, they're a big group. And you know what? They are looking for real experiences. My kids tell me we want to build memories, we want to have experiences. And for that to happen, it can't be virtual reality, it has to be actual reality. So that means they have to come somewhere and experience something, and that's what they want. The Sioux Falls parking, I was there for what they do. They have shuttles that go to their hotels and pick up people all over town. And, you know, they have the same parking problems that we do, even though they've just redone their arena. They don't have enough parking. They don't. And so they do shuttles. And we have buses that aren't running at night. I think we can take care of this. And lastly, I know the mayors are here, and this didn't happen overnight. This deteriorated over time, this Barnett Arena. And I would, you could have fixed it. So I would have liked to have seen something done while it was happening. So please, if you're going to be here and sit in judgment of what's going on right now, remember, you were driving this bus for a long time. And that's the truth. So now you kick the can down to us, and we're going to do our best to try and get this thing back on track.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for everyone that came this evening. We appreciate everyone giving us their thoughts and consideration. Thank you for all the emails, and thank you for the comments. Staff, all the good advice. I had the opportunity to listen to Dr. Rankin from South Dakota School of Mines and Technology a couple weeks ago, and one of the people asked him, well, what are you limited by? And he said, the only thing we're limited by is our imagination. And I doubt that 40 years ago, the people that built the Civic Center would have ever imagined anything like an ICPA conference. But, let alone even imagine a computer 40 years ago or a smartphone. So we don't know if we build something now what it will be used for in the next 40 years. With that said, I am in favor of the citizens in Rapid City having the opportunity to vote. And I would encourage that. I know how I'm going to vote, but I would like all the citizens in town to be able to vote too. I think it's their due. And if we have any type of sales job like we've had tonight, I think they'll vote for it. I yield. Thank you, Mayor.
Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make mine brief. I'll reserve the rest of my comments for the next two items we're probably going to be speaking on as well. That's why I wondered why we had this. But anyway, I wanted to just say that I appreciate everybody's opinions, and I've had a lot of people sharing them with me since the entire process began up until today. In fact, I had people talking to me about it because they knew this was coming to a vote. And I, too, former mayors, appreciate your service and all the years that you've put in, because I, too, have been at times, and there are other people on this dais today that have been called naysayers or people who question things. But that's just it. The questioning shapes these types of projects. In fact, the original one that got voted down in 2015 has very much shaped this particular project. So for those people, and I was here for that one as well, and I voted for that knowing that there was a group that was going to bring it to a vote. I have no fears for that. In fact, I hope that that's exactly what happens. If it doesn't, I'm okay with that too, but I definitely don't fear it. The voice of the people is paramount at all times, not just during major ticket items, but every time I step up here on the dais, I'm thinking about what is the right thing to do for the people, not for Steve. So from that standpoint, the people who have questions, the people who have the hard questions, who have the doubts, they help shape these projects. The previous one, which was very ambitious, agreed, shaped this project. And so there's some appreciation there for that, and I'll reserve the rest of my comments. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I figured I better speak because everybody else is. So, I hope this goes to a vote either way. I think that the citizens have the right to vote on something of this magnitude. And I want to also reach out to the mayor's group and say, the majority of you in your time did at least one project on that Civic Center. I know that Mayor Shaw spearheaded the ice arena, which has been very beneficial to Rapid City. So saying that they let it deteriorate, I think, is a little bit unfair, because everything has a time frame and everything has, you know, a cost. And if we just had unlimited money, we could just keep things going all the time. I believe that we need to build a new arena? Absolutely. Do I believe that right now is the time? Maybe, maybe not. I think that's up to the citizens to decide. I do have a lot of concerns, and we'll discuss them when we get to the items later. But, you know, a lot of people have said I'm a naysayer on this too, and that's not true. I mean, I think that the Civic Center has a progression. I think that it's going to have to move forward eventually, whether it's next year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, it's going to do it. But I just believe that the citizens have the right to make that decision, and not just everybody on this dais, because it's very interesting watching how this came down. I mean, we're talking about, this is such a wonderful plan compared to the last one. The last one, we had architectural drawings. We knew what we were getting. This one, we're just writing a check and we're throwing it and seeing where it sticks. So I think it needs to be done. I'm not sure that we're doing it the right way. I think that the cost of it is a lot better than it was before, but I'm kind of concerned that that cost could balloon. I mean, we're looking at really no option for the Barnett Arena. Are we just going to mothball it? Is it going to become a gigantic, you know, closet? What are we going to do with it? You know, there's a lot of unanswered questions for me, and my responsibility is to vote for the citizens. And if I have questions, what kind of questions do you have? What kind of questions do the people that aren't here have? What kind of questions? And I get a lot of questions. I talk to a lot of people and I hear a lot of different views on it, a lot of different things. But there's a lot of unanswered questions for me. So thank you very much.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to also reserve my comments for later, but at this point, I'd like to also thank everyone that's been involved in this project, especially the volunteers, all the way from the professionals to the volunteers that put in on a lot of time to come forward with these recommendations for us. I really appreciate the study resolution committee that got together and came up with the results that you did. And giving that information to the mayor so that we could actually see it in the public. I guess everybody's doing a spoiler alert too, as well as I'm going to, is that I'm supporting the expansion as well. Let's add on. There's a variety of reasons why I'm supporting that, and I can discuss that a little bit later, but the other concern that was raised by the mayors, and I really respect their comments, however, mayors, if you could present some documentation for me, I'd really like to take a look at it. I've sat across the table from you, most of you, in our discussions, especially in union negotiation contracts. Each one of those times, staff presented us with rationale why we could or why we couldn't do the items that we were discussing. However, just what I'm getting from this editorial comment, I'm not getting enough information from you folks. And if you could provide some additional data, supporting information on it, I'd be very, very grateful for that part of it. The COP on this, the Certificate of Participation, for me kind of blends into a different area for me that I'm very interested in. As I read and understand the definition, it's a lease back. Well, for me, that's a P3. That's a public-private partnership. There's some public involved in this, some private partners involved in this, and I'm very supportive of P3s. So this, for me, is an extension of a P3. I'll reserve some of my other comments for the other items of discussion, but that's my spoiler alert. Thank you. I'll yield.
Chad Lewis. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Just very, very quick thank yous while we had a moment. First of all, thank you to the Civic Center Task Force. You all put in a great deal of time. I sat in with Lisa and watched one of those meetings. It was pretty intense. Awesome deliberations. That was just one of many meetings that you had. And so thank you for your service to our community, for coming at it objectively and voluntarily. And it's very much appreciated, and your words carry a great deal of weight. So I just wanted to thank you. The other thing, an appreciation again to our former mayor's group. I don't think it's necessarily fair to say you kicked any can down the road, because that wasn't, you've always dealt with the issues that we had, and I do just want to again appreciate your service. You know, much of this council has shown that appreciation to you. I certainly do. Voted for each and every one of you. Mayor McLaughlin was the first mayor I ever voted for, which is awesome, and he's here. So thank you. You've done a good job. You've been great leaders. Thank you for speaking up, being great citizens tonight. And our vote certainly doesn't reflect our opinion of you. We have a great deal of respect for you and appreciate you coming out. So I'll yield the floor.
Okay, the motion on the floor for item number 6 is to acknowledge the discussion. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, to approve resolution number 2018-019, a resolution relating to the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center, authorizing the issuance of sales tax revenue bonds and lease certificates of participation in an amount not to exceed $25 million in construction costs, authorizing officers of the city to approve, execute, and deliver certain agreements and documents relating to the obligations. We'll go to Amanda Scott.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to table item number 7.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Chad Lewis. We'll go to John Roberts. No? Oh, table, sorry. You're right. Okay, we have a motion and a second on tabling motion for item number 7, and we'll go to a vote. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Okay, motion passes with 1 no. Item number 8, to approve resolution number 2018-020, a resolution relating to the Rushmore Plaza Civic Center authorizing the issuance of sales tax revenue bonds and lease certificates of participation in an amount not to exceed $110 million in construction costs, authorizing officers of the city to approve, execute, and deliver certain agreements and documents relating to the obligations. Go to Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve, if I can get a second.
Who said second? Laurenti.
And I'll
Is there
yield the
a
floor
second?
for now.
Okay, and we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. One of the reasons that I'm supporting this is because of, first, let me rewind a little bit. I also neglected to thank the volunteers that work for the Civic Center Board as well. So kudos to that group as well for helping out on bringing us information. One of the major reasons that I'm supporting this is probably looking at this from a different perspective and looking at it a little bit larger picture as well, is because of what happened to Sears and Roebuck Company here recently, better known as just plain Sears. They're closing up their doors, primarily because of this bell curve that everybody that, at least that I understand it, and a very lay person's understanding of the economic bell curve. You have your incubation, your development, you peak out, and then as businesses don't innovate or reinvent themselves, that curve goes down and that business starts dying away. That's what's happened to Sears. I also see this as a potential of what's happening with our Rapid City Civic Center. We've got to get to that top of that curve, and as you've seen some of the mayor's presentations, that curve is starting to bend down now. Without that innovation, that next curve going up is not going to take place. Again, I'm just a lay person understanding economics, and the people that educated me in this process explained it very fundamentally to me so I could understand it very clearly. So it's that next curve up that will be a commodity or an innovation. So that's where I'm at. I also believe in that addition or rebuild or add on to the Civic Center is also protecting my little investment that I have here in Rapid City. It's not much. I don't have much for property here in Rapid City, but it's still mine, and I want to protect it. And this is a form of protecting that. Part of this is also, for me, is infrastructure. What that means to me is that as the Mayor Allender has presented in his PowerPoint presentations, all those little different columns where the people start seeing that money getting down to them, that's the people that I like to support and defend. Those people will be able to participate in this program as well, because they're the part of that economic driver for this entire city of Rapid City. So if they don't benefit, then I see that the city of Rapid City doesn't benefit, which means we up here will not be able to support the needs of the city of Rapid City. Finally, what I'd like to also add is a final point here for me is the people that I call the professionals at the Civic Center. We've hired them to trust them. I'm going to let them figure out what the plans, what the events are, let them figure out what the design of that building should be. Allow the professionals to do this, the people that are the experts, rather than me telling them what should be in that Civic Center or how it should be aligned. For me, what I'm also voting on is this is a cap. We've got in this approved this resolution as 130 to 135. That is the cap. There is not going to be overages. It's going to be on time. It's going to be on budget. And that's why I really support and like the hiring of Tegra to come on board with us on this. They have a proven track record. They will stay with it where our city staff cannot have the time and capability and probably in some cases the expertise of what these folks have. So I'm very comfortable with having Tegra as the oversight on this project. Mayor, thank you very much, and I thank you for all the presentations you did and all the time that you spent, and especially away from your family. Thank you very much, and I totally understand what you went through. Thank you.
Okay, Steve Laurenti.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me just finish my comments. Hopefully they'll be quick. Well, quick, you know, defined by a politician. But my comments are more about necessity, capacity, and vision, and that's why I support this. The necessity is really what we've heard tonight from the people who manage it, from the people who manage other properties, from the people who build these types of properties that have managed other properties like ours, that it's on the final part of its life cycle. There's no doubt, and we've all, I think most of us have seen, if not all of us, should have seen from the previous one and this one, is the downturn in the revenues for this Civic Center. It's because it's coming to the end of its life cycle. You don't let something die and then go, oh, we should have. No, we have to be proactive. We have to have the ability to sense the necessity, and that necessity is demonstrated by the revenues that that creates, which is revenues for not only just that facility, but as you heard tonight, it's less seats, it's less people coming here to stay, it's less people coming here to eat, it's less people coming here to shop. So we need to do it for that necessary reason. Capacity, for me, is the other part. Capacity meaning we have the financial capacity to do so. I would consider myself a very fiscal conservative. I always have been since I was elected to this council in 2011, and I will continue to be. Given the fact that you've heard tonight that the Vision Fund will still have 46% of its capacity to do other projects that we all love. Some of those were listed off. The Fine Arts Center, the downtown square, which has really just like changed the downtowns. We're still going to be able to do some of those things, and even to that level. I believe the square was 3-point-some million in that ballpark. So even something that large, we still have the capacity to do in the first year of financing this new civic center. And that money continues, the capacity to do other projects continues to grow with each year past that. So that's what I'm talking about when I say capacity. And this is coming from a fiscal conservative. The last thing that I thought was important was the vision. And to me, this is the undefined part. I'm not real happy about, I'm not a real kind of a touchy-feely kind of guy. I like to deal with numbers. I'm a finance guy, a career that started in 1996 in finance. So I like to just grasp numbers and put them in an Excel spreadsheet and, you know, just play with them and strangle them and try to make them not work or make them work. And I'm comfortable with that, and that's been my career. So that's why I say, you know, when I talk about capacity, I mean it. I've looked at these numbers. But back to that vision part. The vision part for me is realizing back in the 1970s, soon after there was a flood, these people had the vision and the wherewithal, honestly, if you think about it. After the huge flood in 1972, I think it was talked about how much devastation there was. Soon after that, the leaders of this city were saying, let's build this civic center where 1 out of every 4 citizens can go sit in it. Can you imagine, in my opinion back then, I'd probably been one of those going, you people are crazy. You ought to come see my house. It's down here a mile in the river. You know, I still haven't even begun building, and you're talking about building a multi-million-dollar facility that will put 1 out of 4 people in it? That's what I call, like, very visionary. I mean, obviously, very risky. I mean, just amazing to me that leaders back then and then the people supporting that, and it got built. And we all know the history from there. But it's just unbelievable considering the fact that there was so much destruction and cleanup that had to happen, and it was so immediately after that that this investment was made. And I agree that there isn't one person, I don't think, that could honestly say that that wasn't a wise investment into our community. And I believe we are at that stage. We don't have a flood that we're dealing with, but we have a facility that is getting to the very end of its life cycle. And we have to do something about it. And I am willing to support it, and I'm hoping all of you will as well. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
When I was campaigning last spring, I said that I would be a voice for the people, and at least for Ward 5. And I know that nobody's ever going to be 100% for something. However, I have been bombarded with phone calls and emails and just random bumping into people when I go to Cracker Barrels, out at Safeway. It's like the mayor said, he's the mayor 100% of the time, and I'm a councilwoman 100% of the time. And I want to hear from people. And again, I know that not everybody is going to be 100%. We had 20 speakers today, or this evening, and the vast majority were for this. 30% have concerns. And I think we need to keep that dialogue going, because when somebody feels that they're not being heard, then there's resentment, and that doesn't help our community. But I'm not going to lead blindly with, okay, this is how they want to go. I'm a scientist, a speech pathologist by trade. So I crunch the numbers, I dig in, I go to the presentations. In fact, I think after the 5th presentation that I showed up to, the mayor thought I was stalking him. But I want to know, and it wasn't to see so much his presentation, but the feedback from the people, to see what their concerns are. And to be honest, I have those same concerns. Mr. Roberts mentions that he doesn't have those tangible plans. I'm a tangible person. I want to see them too. But we also have to have faith in our leadership. And I have been asking questions, I have been calling, I have been doing my homework. When I was in Broomfield, Colorado, at the First Bank Center last spring, I was inquiring about numbers and how much it costs and what kind of revenue. When I was in Sioux Falls in October, same thing at the Denny Sanford, I was making those inquiries, not because I had to, because I wanted to. And I want to make a logical decision that's going to help everybody, and I've got to be comfortable with that. And I know that the vast majority of people want this. I think if somebody was coming to our community and said, we're going to build you an arena, we're going to build you a wonderful thing, I think we would be dancing in the streets. But the fact that we're concerned about where our money is going, because we are investing in this, we have a right to question that. And I did inquire to see if we should put it on the ballot. I've made those inquiries. I've tried to be playing devil's advocate. But I just think the overwhelming response is that we need to do this, but we need to do this in a smart way where the majority of the people agree. And regardless how this vote goes this evening, I want to invite everybody to keep that dialogue going and working together. When we go against one another, that does not help us. And I realize that I work for the city, but in my mind, I feel that I work, or we work, for this community, and we need to change that mindset from being so business-minded to community-minded. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask a question of the city attorney?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Wade, I know that Joel Landine gave the opinion on the bond issue. I'd like you to really quickly give your opinion on it. And I also want you to answer one other question. We went out to our bond experts, but why didn't we ask the state of South Dakota their opinion, the state attorney general their opinion?
I guess I'm not sure the answer to that. We looked at it and gave our opinion. We checked with the bond council as well and got the same opinion. So there hasn't been an attorney general opinion on this issue, I guess, but in the last couple, I don't know that we could have got one in the last couple of weeks. So that's, you know, as far as timing is probably the answer to that. But
because the way that it reads, it does look like that we could do it. Now, I know that you're saying that it's read out of context or it's read, you know, but it would be nice to have the state's attorney opinion on it, because I know, you know, school systems, they have the ability to bond, and they're one of them that's listed under here, and that's never been a question. That's been done. Belle Fourche has done it. There's been many municipalities that have done it. So I guess for my own personal, it's not that I don't trust the city's attorney's office. I would just like to have a ruling a little higher than the city attorney's office on it for me, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I was just wanted to have your opinion on this. Now, if I can ask a question from the representative from Tegra, do you mind? Have we hired you already? Okay, I was just curious because I never saw that. And as far as your compensation, how do you get compensated on this building the new arena? And what that gets the RFPs out, that gets, okay, and that answers my question, because it was under the 50,000, so we didn't have to have approval from the council, so that answered that question. You've done a few of these, it looks like, and you believe that 8,500 bowl seating, you know, 10,500 seating, you can do it at that 120 million, you know. And will that be with furnitures, fixtures, with everything? Will that be, okay. But no guarantees, you know, and then,
Oh, I'm sorry.
okay.
Sorry.
So no guarantees of it, but you believe that we can do it for this price?
Yeah, all indications say that from our past
Okay.
experience.
And you know, thank you very much, I appreciate that. And that's one of the issues that I have with this, is the fact that, you know, I am in that type of work. I'm in real estate, I'm in building, I'm in, you know, and what do? You have to have plans to build something. And it just, for me, I have a hard time wrapping my head around going out and writing a check for X amount of money with no plan. And it's just really hard for me to put that concept into my mind. And I know that there's a lot of other people out there. I'm not saying it's not going to work. I'm not saying you can't do it cheaper. But what happens if it is more? What happens if it is $150 million? You know, the ice arena, when the ice arena was built, it was originally supposed to be, and maybe one of the mayors can refresh my memory on what the original budget was, but I know it went over. So, you know, what happens? What do we do? Pauline's chiming in, I think.
I was just going to comment on the ice arena. It was originally budgeted at 15, and then we had to go out for a second bond issue of $8 million to finish the project.
Okay.
On that one. On this one, conversations between staff that's been involved with some of those discussions has been we go back and figure out how we get it within the budget, that the $130 to $135 million budget.
Well, great, and I'm sure they thought the same thing about the ice arena. It ran over 30-some%.
That was right after I started, so I can't tell you that part, but
I'm just saying there's a lot of what ifs to me. You know, I wish that I'd had the feasibility study, you know, sooner than 2 days before this meeting. I wish that I could have went through and studied this a little bit more. You know, I just have a lot of questions that aren't answered, and I think that the citizens are going to have a lot of questions that aren't answered. And I do hope that it goes to a vote, because I really think that the people have the right to vote on something this large, and especially something this large with so many unanswered questions. So anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a couple of things. There's one point Mr. Roberts brought up I think is good, is, you know, we have this price tag, but we don't have any plans. You know, and I thought about that when I first heard the price tag. I thought, yeah, you know, I want to see something. I want to see what this thing's going to be. And, you know, and I'm reminded, whenever we go to apply for a mortgage, we don't get to go apply for a mortgage by what we want. We go to apply for a mortgage by what we can afford. And so I think what's important is, as we set the dollar amount, it is basically, you're kind of like getting that pre-approval. Here's what we can afford, and that's where that figure came from, and we heard that tonight. From there, they can go backwards to the plan. The other thing I like is the owner's rep, the fact that they've had, I think they said 22 years of not going over budget and always coming in on time with major projects much bigger than this. And the fact is, I'm not sure we've had, you know, that kind of representation before. I think that's pretty powerful. But I do want to focus in on something for our city attorney, if I may. Wade, the question, I think the big kind of question that we all, you know, wish we had better, I guess, grasp of, is the idea of the initiated measure and the fact that people, perhaps putting it on a ballot for people to vote on. Can you describe, not just for us, but for the public, what this is about, why you're recommending we can't do this, and why the bond company thinks so? What is it that precludes us when we have certain things to, I never went to law school, so I just read this verbatim, and I think that's what it is, and I'm understanding certain statutes tied to other ones. So if you could educate those of us who didn't go to law school on your recommendation here.
Certainly. At first blush, it does look like it allows this. And when it was presented to us a couple of weeks ago, we Spent a lot of time researching it. Joel looked at it. He had me look at it. We asked our bond counsel for an opinion on it as well. And so, you know, we all came to the same conclusion, sort of separately, and we came together and talked about it, and we all had the same conclusion after looking at this a little closer. It doesn't authorize an advisory election. And so there's a couple of reasons for it. One of the reasons is when you look at specific laws versus general laws, the specific ones control. And so there's a general rule that says you have to have an election on a bond, but then there are several exceptions to that. One of those exceptions is sales tax revenue bonds, which would be the case here. And so when the statute says you can do non-ad valorem tax, sales tax revenue bonds, and no election is required for that. And so the statute is specific on that point. And then it points back to this chapter that Mayor Hanks handed out, the 6-8B. And it says bonds are to be issued and sold according to that chapter. Well, it sort of bypasses the election part. It's you approve your issue, or you approve the bonds, and then you go out and you issue them and you sell them according to those regulations in that chapter. So the specific one says you don't need an election, and it basically says skip that part. And so when you look at 6B or 6-8B, the other reason is you look at we looked at the text of that statute, the statute surrounding it, the legislative history, and the other supporting statutes, and it becomes clear that the purpose of that statute is to say when you have to have an election, you get the choice. You can have a special election, or you can do it at the next annual municipal election. So it's for those cases where an election is required. You have the choice of setting your own special election or doing it with your regular annual municipal election. And that's really the purpose of that statute. So those are basically, I guess, in a nutshell, the two reasons that we came to that opinion.
Okay. And I'm satisfied if we have multiple city attorneys as well as outside counsel who verify that. You know, and it is kind of confusing. I read, plain language. Honestly, I look at this, I'm like, well, it kind of looks, I mean, I can see why we would think that, but I guess that's a good reason why you got to have an attorney and not represent yourself on certain things. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. The motion on the floor is to approve item 8. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes with 1 no. Now that the vote is done, I would like to answer one of the questions that Mr. Roberts had, and that was, why don't we have a plan or a drawing or a model? Well, when we went into this whole issue, we went in with the knowledge that in 2015, the city had spent $700,000 preparing for that public election. There was nice drawings, and there were models, and there were all types of things. We didn't do that. What we did do was use our professional consultants to get updated estimates on buildings similar to what we would be building. And so we came to learn through educated estimation on what our building would cost, and also coupled that with what we could afford. And so that's how we got to that point, Mr. Roberts. So we're done with this agenda. Motion to adjourn? Moved by Drury and second by Laurenti. All in favor say aye. 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 Thank you, everyone.